Hello, you are listening to Trump Republic Radio. It is May 21st, 2017. It is the 10th episode of this show. As always, I'm your host, Enzo Quesada, and I'm joined by my co-host, Bobby Hester.
Hello, everyone.
And this week we have returning guest, Kris Celera.
Здравствуйте,
So as always, I just want to say, how has your week been this last week? What have you been up to?
Well, for the first time in months, I decided to get a haircut, and I look like someone about to go into basic training.
Yeah, you do look like you're in the military. It's like extremely short. It's like buzz cut down.
I did not want it to get cut that short, but the barber lady there apparently did not understand what I wanted, so, oh well.
So she made you look like a buzzcut lesbian.
Yes.
Kris, what have you been up to this last week?
All right. I'll start off on the less weird things about my life. So the improv comedy show was a hit. I did a little bit of stand-up as well, and got myself a boyfriend, a tall white male, blonde hair, blue eyes, master race. But as just as an update on being doxxed, if you don't want to have roommates, a great way you can do it is if you are a public enemy of Antifa, because my apartment managers know I've been doxxed because they follow me on Facebook, and they are a bit concerned about pairing me up with any roommates. So for the foreseeable future, I'm not going to have a roommate again.
Even though they haven't done anything, at this point they probably won't.
No, they're not going to do shit.
They think it's going to scare you putting your information up there, but if they don't do anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're gayer than I am.
They even had inaccurate information, so.
Yeah, I remember one of those guys just, we're going to beat you up in your retail job. I left retail 2 years ago.
I kind of want to put false information on the internet now, just in case I ever get doxxed for anything.
Oh, just give them my address. They're not going to do crap.
I get phone calls all the time from your insurance company.
Yeah, that's another topic, but.
But as far as my week has been, me and Bobby, we went to that one meetup in Austin. That was very fun. We got to see Simon Roche again. We're actually looking to have him do a podcast with us next week during the week. I think maybe we'll be recording between Tuesday and Thursday. Haven't gotten back to him, but he said he definitely wanted to do it. Our Sadelanders episode actually has around 200 listens at the moment, so it's our best show ever. I didn't even know why it was doing so well, but I guess it's pretty good because that's a really important cause. Other than that, I was at the high school some. They have their last day of school next week, Thursday. The last day I'm going is actually Wednesday, though, so kind of sad I have to say goodbye to the students. Love them a lot, but, it's inevitable. But actually on Friday it was pretty fun. They ordered pizzas, and I went and picked them up for different classes, so they're, super thankful. Oh, thank you so much, Mr. Quesada. They even want to give you, money to pay for the gas to, drive down the street. It was, a 2-minute drive to go get it. But, yeah, that was fun. That's pretty much all I've been up to. But let's get into the national news. So the first thing that we want to talk about is all this impeachment talk. The world definitely went crazy for the first couple of days this week. It all started with the article that the Washington Post posted on Monday. Bobby, do you want to get into some of that stuff?
Well, the Washington Post originally posted an article. Honestly, I forget what the exact headline of it was, but it was something along the lines of saying that a couple of Dem leaders were calling for his impeachment.
Well, it was based off of supposedly giving classified information to the Russians.
They said he supposedly gave classified information to Russia during a phone call, but the information he actually gave wasn't even classified. It was information that was publicly known, because it was about ISIS smuggling laptop bombs onto planes.
Yeah, which is just why do we not want the Russians to know about that? Do we want more airplanes being bombed?
And if you think about it, there's no easy way for Trump to do it, because let's say the information is classified, so he gives them the information, then they're like, oh no, Trump gave away classified information, let's impeach him. But if he doesn't give away the information and ISIS does attack, then it's hey, you knew about this information, why didn't you tell anyone?
In the article, they even have McMaster quoted saying, nothing wrong was done or whatever.
Well, yeah, because I think it was I believe it was McMaster who called like a press conference immediately after the story broke, telling them, "Hey, the stuff that you said in that thing, we did not give away any classified information in that phone call."
Even then, like Trump has the ability to declassify documents.
Right. Anytime a president releases any information, it's immediately declassified. He can declassify anything he wants at any time for any reason.
But, like, you know, because of the confirmation bias and so many people about Trump at the moment, and how hard they've been pushing Russia, just by pushing that out there on Monday, like, for the next couple of days, everyone was losing their mind, and they thought, like, oh, we're on the verge of Trump being impeached.
Right, and it was the very next day where I believe it was Representative Al Green of Texas, who represents someone in, like, a district near Houston. Yeah. He, on the floor of the House, said, "I call for the president to be impeached." Which is like, no. And the markets tanked because of that on Tuesday. They were down like 250 points. It was the worst day of trading in 2017. All over just talk, speculative talk, over the possibility of bad things might happen to the Trump administration. Which, if you think about it, actually shows how pro-Trump the markets really are. Because if the markets wanted Trump to be impeached, they would have skyrocketed that day.
Yeah.
But they don't want him to be impeached. And they don't want chaos to happen. That's why it went down. And then of course, we're going to get to it, but over the next couple of days, talk of that kind of slowed down and was kind of retracted a little bit. It started to go back up. We've actually gained back about 3/4 of the losses that we had on Tuesday.
Yeah. But, Chris, so what are your thoughts been the last couple of days since seeing this impeachment talk coming with this fake news?
Yeah, it's all around bad optics for the Democratic Party. This is a losing strategy. We've seen this before time and time again they've been pushing this Russia talk, and there was the grab tape, and now the rallying cry is, oh hey, let's impeach him. But here's the thing, they're setting themselves up for disappointment. Not to mention that, let's say for some reason they do get impeached before the midterms, which is not in their favor regardless. It's going to look back poorly on them as a way to circumvent the will of the electorate by any means necessary.
Yeah, and like as far as impeachment even goes, like you need to get the House and the Senate to vote to do that, and we control both the House and the Senate. Like, who are they even convinced to do this?
And not to mention that they're pushing, that both the challengers and the incumbents are pushing each other for more impeachments. Particularly the Democrats who want to play it safe, they can't play it safe because the more radical, the more leftist challengers in the upcoming primaries are already saying, "Hey, no, I'm for real change. I'm going to impeach Trump." It forces their opponent to do the same as well, or be associated with, "Oh, hey, I'm now Trump," and
it's driving the far left fringe of the Democratic Party even farther left, in the moderate fringe of the Democratic Party more slightly towards the center and even to the right a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to get into this stuff later. There's a lot of stuff to talk about with the Democratic Party, but you look at the Washington Post, this all blew up with them, and they had anonymous sources for this leak.
They always have anonymous sources, every single one of them, including, if you remember, they were talking about that Comey memo that he wrote.
Yeah.
That was, no journalist has actually seen the memo. There's no evidence it even exists. In fact, the closest they have is the anonymous source who said that they read it to someone, or it was read to them.
Yeah, at this point, it's just weaponized fake news. If you understand how the news works, the beginning of the news week is Monday. If you want the people to talk about something, you need to release something on Monday. The end of the news cycle is Friday and Saturday because that's when everyone is off work and wants to go, party or have fun or whatever. So that's the days of the week that people read the news the least amount. So immediately once I saw this happen on Monday, I knew this is a coordinated effort. Have you seen the photos of everyone in the newsroom celebrating when they released this stuff?
Yeah, that was from the Washington Post, I believe, as well, right?
Yeah, that was the Washington Post doing that. And actually, the Washington Post, the very next day, released an article that said, no, Trump did not break the law in talking classified details with the Russians. So, what are you guys even doing? They just understand that if you're the ones that put out some sort of hugely negative Trump-Russia article. There'll be enough people in the media to pick it up and they'll run with it. And we saw, CNN and MSNBC running the same story.
Yeah, I was going to say, within the hour after the Washington Post broke the story, both CNN and the New York Times, quote-unquote, confirmed its validity. Without anybody else, without them interviewing anyone, that was even before McMaster released his statement saying it was fake. So, these people, they're obviously in collusion with each other, to a degree.
And this was very shortly after the Seth Rich stuff came out, which we'll be talking about a bit later.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was either right before or right after, but they came out almost at the exact same time.
But it really hid that story, and I mean, they've been burying that story anyways. So.
Well, I just remembered, the Seth Rich story came out like an hour and a half beforehand.
Yeah.
And it was right after that when it started to gain traction, where they decided to break the whole, classified information was released, no non-story story.
Which we've seen the media do this kind of stuff before. If you remember back during the general election during the summer, when the WikiLeaks stuff came out about Hillary, an hour later they dropped the pussy grab stuff. So, I mean, this is not beyond the media to do. They do this stuff all the time, so...
Yeah, but thankfully, since then, a lot of the talk of impeachment has sort of slowed down. A lot of it is because of the fact that there is the Seth Rich story, which we're going to get to later. But it's also because of the fact that there's now a special counsel that is overseeing the FBI, or is overseeing the Russian investigation. And the guy who they have it is the former FBI director.
So, and I'm pretty happy that they're doing this special investigation, because there's nothing to fear with this stuff. As quickly as possible that we can have some sort of official dispel this stupid narrative, the better. Because, I mean, we've been talking about this garbage for like 6 months now.
Yeah, and and like you said, there is absolutely no evidence there. But the more they talk about it without there being an investigation, the more they can get away with it. If you have an actual investigation prove beyond a reasonable doubt, absolute definitive proof that there is nothing there, I mean, a lot of them are going to keep going with the story and say that, they didn't investigate it. But those people are going to be quickly ignored. Because once you can absolutely prove that there is nothing there, the story dies.
And we even have top Democratic officials in the party saying, like Dianne Feinstein has said, like they have no evidence of collusion between Trump and Russia. And we've had Maxine Waters, who has been completely unhinged, showing us just how dumb she is lately, saying also that there's no evidence of Trump and Russia collusion. And I believe even CNN had some sort of story that like proved that Trump was innocent. They had like this inadvertent like news flash come out. But I really hope this Russia stuff goes away soon, because it's really undermining the administration so much. And I really take a lot of offense to this Russia stuff, because it really just craps on all the people that put themselves out there to make Trump, have him be elected. There's so many people that had to put in so much work for Trump to win. And they all just say, like, no, it wasn't because of the work that you did. It's not what the sacrifice you did. It's because, Vladimir Putin hacked the election, which is a dumb term to begin with.
And, part of me obviously wants to see the Russian investigation, all that stuff just go ahead and end. But another part of me feels, the more the Democrats push that, what do they have to run on in 2018? They're not going to be able to run on record, because we're seeing that, the economy's doing great. We're bringing jobs back. The reason Trump won, we're seeing successes in that very, that sectors. So it's like, what record did they have to run? Did they say, oh, vote for us, we'll undo all this economic prosperity? They got nothing. All they have is Russia.
It is wasting their time, and there are a lot of Democrats that are just sick of this Russia stuff as well. I mean, it's time to move on. Can anyone even name a Russian that helped, quote-unquote, hack the election yet? If you're going to make the positive claim of, Trump and Russia colluded, you think they should be able to put up some sort of evidence by now. That's how you make an argument.
Yeah, but no, they're pushing the burden of proof onto the accused, not the accuser.
I believe there was even, I saw there was some sort of mainstream media thing where, I think it was CNN, where they said to the guy, like, can you prove that there wasn't? How do you prove a negative claim? You can't.
Yeah, I mean, the media is completely completely unhinged at this point. Did you guys see the video of Anderson Cooper when he was interviewing a guy who was pro-Trump?
No.
Yeah, he got a lot of flack for this because he was interviewing a guy who was defending Trump over this matter. And Anderson Cooper on live TV said, yeah, well, the president could take a dump on his desk and you would defend him. And, of course, he was forced to apologize for that. But, that's what's going through these people's brains.
I hate these people so much.
I mean, Trump absolutely was right when he tweeted out, the media are the enemy of the American people at this point. They are knowingly pushing disinformation and untrue information that's completely made up in order to undermine the president of the United States.
Yeah, I've been thinking the last week or so, I don't really understand why I'm supposed to see Russia as an enemy. I mean, the Russians hate me and my president a lot less than the mainstream media does. They've been condemning us Trump supporters ever since Trump won. The Russians don't do that.
I mean, not only that, but Putin himself even offered to provide the transcripts to prove that Trump didn't release any classified information.
Yeah, immediately the reaction to that was, oh yeah, because we're going to trust an ex-KGB agent. See, their minds are already made up. They're not going to trust Trump or Putin or give the benefit of the doubt to Trump supporters.
Yeah, I don't really have any other things to say on this issue other than it's ridiculous. Do y'all have anything, or should we move on?
Well, I would just like to add one more thing, and that's what Comey actually said, because he was under oath when he said that there was no obstruction of justice happening when Trump said, I hope you... I think, what did he say? I said
with the Matt Flynn stuff?
Yeah, he said,
Michael Flynn.
He never told him, I want you to stop this investigation. He said, I hope you drop it. And,
yeah.
There was no quid pro quo. There was no, I hope you drop it or I'm going to fire you. There was no, you need to drop this or I'm going to do something to your family. It was, no, I don't think there's anything there. I think you should probably just drop it.
Even I saw this week, Alan Dershowitz, who doesn't like Trump, said that even if, say, Russia and the Trump campaign organized together to release this WikiLeaks stuff, there's no statute that makes that illegal. I mean, it might be unethical, people would shun it, but it's not. So
and not only that, but all the information that was released in WikiLeaks was real. It's all been confirmed to be, legitimate information. Yet all this whole Russia tie stuff, none of it's real. They have no evidence whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about the source of this WikiLeaks stuff in the past, and it's just ridiculous. Can't we just say that the stuff that was released is stuff that the American public should know about? Apparently to half the country, it seems, no.
And, even if you go back to the whole, the thing that happened with General Flynn, even the FBI reviewed the phone call that he made to the Russian ambassador and found that there was nothing illegal that was given out.
Yeah, he just talked to a Russian.
Yeah.
That's all it takes at this point. If you talk to a Russian, that's a controversy. Apparently, we aren't supposed to be trying to fix the relations with Russia at all, which is one of the reasons why I voted for Trump. I mean, I wanted to fix these problems because we were pushing, going to war with them so hard. If Hillary was our president, there'd be a good chance that we would be at war with Russia. But it's not what I want.
Yeah, Trump said over and over in his campaign, why can't we just be friends with Russia? We don't have to be enemies. We don't have to start a new war. Let's just be friends.
Yeah, but let's get into this NAFTA stuff that you have up here. Do you want to talk about that, Bobby?
Yeah, so kind of going towards some more positive things. So Robert Lighthizer was confirmed as the U.S. Trade Representative, and when Trump all had his talks about, I want to renegotiate NAFTA and all this stuff, this is the guy who's going to do it. And he has pretty much said that he has his sights set on NAFTA. And he's the guy who's going to actually do this. And now that he's in office, he was stalled in the Senate for over 4 months. And they finally confirmed him this week. So that pretty much completes Trump's cabinet. So we pretty much finally have a cabinet put in place.
It's crazy that it's taken this long.
Yeah. But Trump himself even made a statement, I forget where it was, but he said that he wants to start the renegotiation of NAFTA around mid-August.
Yeah.
So, I think you made it last week where you said, why does Trump always have all these timetables that he sets? But at least by having a timetable, we kind of know when stuff's going to happen. So you finally have your trade representative in place, and you say, okay, I want this to be started around August. Great. Get through the summer. Once all this impeachment talk, whatever, dies down, go after NAFTA. Because already I think Mexico and Canada have already said that they're open to renegotiations. They're open to that stuff happening.
And this was one of the bigger campaign promises that Trump had. So, seeing movement on this front is definitely very promising. And, I've had people come at me and just oh, can you prove that Trump has fulfilled any campaign promises? Day one he killed TPP, and now he's looking to renegotiate NAFTA. I mean, what more do you want from this dude? As far as trade goes, he's doing a great job by me.
Yeah, and the president cannot do everything himself. That's why you have cabinet positions. That's why you have jobs like the U.S. Trade Representative. You have people who do this for you. And Robert Lighthizer is very good. There's a reason why Trump wanted him to do it. And so you finally have Trump's guy out there doing it. So I'm happy about that.
Chris, do you have any thoughts on this NAFTA stuff? Or
I say it's going to bring back the Trump base that has been fractured after the Syrian crisis, to where he is going back to, hey, my other promises, there's other things that he can provide to the rest of us.
Yeah. And, the trade stuff is one of the biggest reasons why he was able to win so many states in the Midwest. He was able to break that blue wall. I mean, if you go back and think back to the election, there's a lot of people that say, this Trump guy, he offends me. But, the factory in my town still is gone. I still am out of work. You can be I still care about illegal immigrants coming into my country, and I can't defend Trump on every single thing he said in the scope of him being in the public light, but at least he's doing right by us Trump supporters and actually pursuing his campaign promises.
And that's, and this happened almost completely under the rug from all this, the media focusing on Russia and all that sort of stuff. So while they're distracted by this, he's actually getting stuff done in the background.
They hide every single positive story, which, we're going to talk a little more about later because there's a good Harvard study on it. But, there's so many positive stories this week, I feel, and I don't watch the mainstream news, but I haven't seen them talk about any of the stuff from my periphery views on these things.
And, and that's what I was saying before we started the show. Was if you get past all the fake news that's being pushed out there about Russia or impeachment or all that stuff, what are you left with? You're left with a roaring economy. You're left with jobs coming back. You're left with illegal immigration going down. You got all these really good stories that are going on, but none of it's being focused on the media.
Yeah. Do you have any more things on this, or should we get into this executive order?
Let's get into it.
So on Monday, there's a new executive order which is actually calling for the American public to give suggestions as to fixing the different broken areas. This is straight from the White House website. It says, all Americans will be able to submit suggestions and ideas on how to make the government work better for them. Our moral duty is to the taxpayer, requires us to make our government leaner and more accountable. We must all do a lot more with less. The release also quoted a speech from Trump's campaign trail before he won the presidency, in which he describes his approach to a leaner government. Quote, I will ask that savings be accomplished through common sense reforms that eliminate government waste and budget gimmicks, and that absolutely protect hard-earned benefits for Americans. So now he's kind of giving us an opportunity to actually send in his suggestions, or our suggestions to the government. Do you remember when he actually asked for suggestions prior to the debates on which topics he wanted us to get into?
Yeah, he sent that out as mass emails to all of his email people, and they were able to fill out things like, what topics are important to you, or, how would you answer certain questions? What do you think Trump should focus on in debates, that sort of stuff.
Which I remember answering that email myself, and I wanted him to talk about the WikiLeaks stuff, and he did during that second debate. He sent it right before the second debate. So, it goes to show that Trump really wants to get the input of us Americans, and he's doing right by me in that sense.
There's a reason why they call him a populist. He listens to the American people. He wants to do what they want to do.
And at the same time, we've been seeing the government, become a lot leaner. We've been getting rid of a lot of unnecessary hiring, as we went over last week. We are running a surplus in the U.S. government, actually,
$180 billion in April.
So, really, when he's saying that we do want to have a leaner government that, doesn't waste the taxpayers' money, that's happening. They don't talk about that, but that is happening. Any other thoughts on that, or should we move into this Sheriff Clark stuff?
I think we should move on.
So, Sheriff Clark has just been, he just accepted a job for a high position in the Department of Homeland Security. Do you have some stuff on this, Bobby?
Yeah, so everyone loves Sheriff Clark. We love him. But he is joining as the Assistant Secretary, U.S. Department of Homeland Security Chief. So pretty much he's the second in charge of now, the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, and Sheriff Clark was one of the biggest supporters of, Donald Trump during the campaign, especially because he was the sheriff of Milwaukee.
Correct.
And he came out after all these Milwaukee riots. You remember his, very hostile interview with Don Lemon on CNN? If you haven't seen that, I recommend you go back and just see how hard Sheriff Clark was there for defending us. And Sheriff Clark understands the problems that was going on in Milwaukee, and he did want to see a law and order candidate come into power. And it's good to see, Sheriff Clark, someone who's been loyal to Trump and who's been on message since the campaign, is now in the Department of Homeland Security.
Yeah, and they said that while he is going to be the assistant, pretty much the assistant deputy assistant director of Homeland Security, whatever the official title is, but they said he's going to be working within the Office of Public Engagement, and his exact role with that has yet to be released about what he's doing, but they did say he's going to start in June. So it'll still be another couple of weeks before he actually starts the job, which is fine.
Which is fine. But I don't think there's any more to get into that. We've been kind of jumping around with the list. I don't even think we have so much more to say. Other than this last Maxine Waters things that came up during the week. Do you got that stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, this is absolutely hilarious.
So, as always, I feel like we've been talking about Maxine Waters every single week for the last 3 weeks. If you don't know, she's a representative from California. And she's been making these outrageous claims every single week. And this week now she said that Trump got the phrase "lock her up" and "crooked Hillary" from Vladimir Putin. What network did she say this on?
MSNBC.
I remember now. I watched the little segment where she said it, and the guy interviewing her, he just has the most bewildered look on his face after she said that. And I believe, immediately after, he says, "Dude, you have evidence for this stuff?" She's like, "Well, no, but, I don't... What's up with these public officials, especially Maxine Waters, just making these outrageous claims all the time? I mean, they got, fake news level of, confirming things that they say at this point."
Yeah, they don't need any evidence. All they need is, 10,000 retweets from their bot followers, and then boom, it gets trending, and then that's all they need. That's it.
Chris, do you have thoughts on Trump appropriating these phrases, "lock her up" and "crooked Hillary" from Vladimir Putin?
The hole's getting deeper and deeper. I mean, they said, release his tax returns, these Russian hackers, and now apparently Putin is a mastermind behind everything Donald Trump has ever done, down to his tweets and catchphrases.
Yeah, for one, lock her up. It doesn't take a genius to make a little chant that says "lock her up," like she's a criminal, put her in jail.
Did Trump himself ever actually say "lock her up"? Because I thought that was just his supporters mostly. I
don't really know, but as far as crooked Hillary goes, she's not the first one to get a nickname from Donald Trump. I mean, Low Energy Jeb, Little Rubio,
Little Marco.
Little Marco, Lying Ted, Pocahontas. Like,
Crazy
Trump
Bird.
understands that once he puts out these little nicknames for them, it kills their brand. Like, all of his supporters use it all the time.
And not to mention, this is not the first time Hillary Clinton has received a nickname. One of my favorite nicknames that I've heard said for her is the Wicked Witch of the West Wing.
Also, there's Shillery and Killery, but those have been used for years now, before Trump even came on the scene.
Yeah, but just more absurd stuff coming out of these Democratic Party officials. Let's get into some of this economic stuff that we have really quickly. Can you go through this, Bobby?
Yeah, so just really quickly, unemployment claims have fallen now to a 28-year low. So that just shows you, how jobs are returning, how less people are claiming unemployment. One negative thing, though, is that tax reform might not happen until next year, and that's all because of Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell are cucking out on us right now. And,
Yeah.
I still actually think it is going to happen this year, because, this is an article from the New York Times, but even getting beyond that, there's so much. The American people want to see tax reform happen. The markets want to see tax reform happen, and Paul Ryan, I can easily see him getting, primaried out.
I
Or at least
wish.
have someone say, look, I am pro-Trump. Even though Paul Ryan would probably easily win, at least have someone come in there and challenge him a little bit. Same thing with Mitch McConnell, although I don't think he's up for re-election next year. Although I'm not sure.
Well, the re-election for Paul Ryan happened last year. He was facing Paul Nehlen, which Paul Nehlen is a great candidate to face him, and he is pretty much all that you said. And I know Paul Nehlen has said, it's been suggested to him by Donald Trump himself, like, you should run for other positions in office. And Paul Nehlen said back to him, well, this is the one I want. And Donald Trump smiled and he said, good to hear that. So I do hope that Paul Nehlen tries to challenge Paul Ryan again. But I know in that election it was something like 85% to 15 as far as it went. So,
Yeah.
Paul Ryan is well beloved for some odd reason amongst conservatives.
Or at least in Wisconsin's 1st congressional district.
Yeah.
But that being said, if tax reform doesn't happen this year and it's pushed into 2018, early 2018, around January, February is where everyone's going to start declaring that they're going to run for the general elections in 2018. So you can easily have someone come out and push him to do that. But I still think it's going to happen this year because that's what people want.
I know they said initially they're aiming to get tax reform done by August, or at least start the process that we need to.
Yeah, start right around the second quarter, where the second quarter and third quarter meet, around August, September. That seems to be when Trump wants to start a lot of stuff right now. So, go through the summer, because summer's when crazy stuff always happens no matter what. Let that stuff calm down and then focus on the important things.
Which, there's no reason why we shouldn't be passing this if we have the House, Senate, and the presidency. And as, we've seen before with Gorsuch getting through, we can nuclear this stuff to get through the Senate. We don't have to negotiate with these Democrats.
Yeah, we should be going nuclear with everything in the Senate. Make the Democrats feel completely, make it so that they don't even matter. We have the majority in the House. We have the majority in the Senate. Pass everything you want. Don't even worry about a single Democrat vote.
And this is a really good tax plan, as we've said before in the past. And, Bobby, you're an accountant major, and you've talked about the specifics of this, and you really like the plan. There's a lot of coverage as far as this plan goes. I remember Jeffrey Tucker, which I hate that guy, but he wrote a really good article about how good this plan is. And Jeffrey Tucker's always talking crap about Donald Trump, but at least he had something good to say about the plan that he's set. Do you want to get into this last thing that we have with the economy?
Let's skip it.
Okay. Let's get into this tech story that we have. It looks like scientists have been able to develop an artificial womb now, which is, really, really interesting and might actually end abortions. Do you have the specifics up on that?
I actually haven't really read through it very much, so...
Well, I know some of it. They actually developed it with lambs that were born prematurely. They were able to raise 4 lambs in an artificial womb, which if you look at the photos of it, it looks like they put a giant plastic bag over the lambs. But I know, Chris, you actually know a lot about this stuff. Do you want to get into what you know?
Yeah, basically, artificial room so far, artificial room so far, it's preliminary right now. It's an infancy stage, pun intended, but it's only going to get better. It's going to be a lot more complicated when we transfer this to human biology, because we have to talk about the regulating hormones, masculine, feminine, and this. That promises is on minor tangent. There's still studies out that suggest that it is the level of hormone exposure to developing fetuses that actually influence sexuality. So there's going to be some ethics there saying, oh, wait, you can make your baby gay or straight, or decide if you want to make the baby a male or female. And but feminists you think they would be happy about this, that women would no longer be subjugated to
Taking the baby to term.
To take the baby full term, that this could end the abortion debate. But Anne Oakley, she's a feminist. In her book, The Captured Womb, A History of the Medical Care of Pregnant Women, and it talks about how ectogenesis, the scientific term for artificial wombs, would accentuate the discrepancy of power between male and female that will render females, who are about 160 million females, have been targeted for sex-related abortion in places like China and India. But to get into the point, she said that the misogynistic male and misogynistic medical cultures will take control of birth and women's wombs.
I was thinking we've talked a lot about going into space, going into Mars. If we're able to have frozen embryos and then have artificial wombs, maybe not necessarily for humans per se, but for animals, all of a sudden you can start populating a colony with animals using artificial wombs without necessarily needing to bring animals with you.
I didn't even think about that. That is a good point.
The caveat for embryo ships is that space is very large. It's such a long time that even if we do send frozen embryos, if we are traveling still at sublight speeds to get to the nearest habitable planets, those embryos will grow too old and expire.
I'm thinking about going to Mars. You can probably have an embryo last for 6 months, because that's about how long it takes to get to Mars.
Could we raise a flock of sheep on the moon? That'd be pretty cool.
I want a cow to jump over the moon.
Moon shepherds? Yeah,
the future people.
If you're a pro-choice person, this is probably the best news you can hear in a long time.
Unless you're a feminist.
Unless you're a feminist. Even though, we're pretty much solving all your qualms. You don't have to, have this baby. You don't have to give birth to it. You don't even have to, take responsibility for it. You can just put it up for adoption immediately, but I don't see why they're so mad.
Yeah, I guess I can see some points from the Anne Oakley camp. They cite the misogynistic Middle Eastern cultures to where women are treated as property. If women are rendered obsolete, so to speak, because there's high instances of same-sex relations within the Middle East. So her concern is, if men don't need to have women for birth, then the women have basically lost all their value to men in these misogynistic cultures.
I don't care though. That's my thing. I don't care if you just lost your value because of scientific research. Maybe you should be able to provide value some other way than just inherently having a womb. But I have been called a misogynist a lot of times in my life, so I don't really care so much. Should we get into this drone stuff that we have?
Absolutely. So the next thing we have is that if you don't know, if you currently have a personal drone, you have to register it with the FAA.
Which we actually got to see a drone when we went to Austin to that meetup, which I haven't really seen many drones in my life. That's the coolest drone I've ever seen. The dude that was showing it, it had a little screen and it controlled like it was a video game, up and down, left and right, and you could actually get to stay
almost perfectly still
in the air, and he was able to take photos up with it. He actually sent me the photo, and it's like a 4K photo. It looks super clear. Drone technology is really cool, but he's telling us that you're required to register every single drone.
Right. Until now.
Until
Because
now.
a federal appeals court, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia, actually, has ruled in favor of a side that has said that they said that they don't think the FAA has the authority under like their registration rules to require people to register their drones. And the judge sided with them. So as long as you have a non-commercial drone, so pretty much just one for like personal use, you no longer have to register it with the FAA.
Which is pretty cool. It does seem like an overreach of the government to really put all this restriction on drones. Drone technology is definitely going to take off, more in the future.
Like, I kind of understand why they would do that, because you probably don't remember, but I think it was either last year or the year before. There was a big wildfire out in California.
Yeah, he was telling us about that.
There was a big wildfire out in California to the point where traffic was stopped on the road when the wildfire hit, and a lot of cars caught on fire because it was going across with high winds. It was going across the road.
Well, they couldn't get the helicopters coming because of the risk of hitting them.
Not only that, but all the people that lived in the area had drones that had cameras on them, so they wanted to see the wildfire, and they were flying it up all over the air. The helicopters that were trying to drop water could not fly because there were so many drones in the air. So that's just one of the things that I understand kind of why the FAA says, hey, we need to restrict drone usage to a bit. But, that's just one isolated incident out of many. But overall, yeah, I'm glad that we no longer have to require them to be registered, because I plan on buying a drone probably this year if I have the money for it, and I definitely don't want to have to register it.
Drones are getting pretty cool. I don't think I'd ever drop money on getting a drone, but maybe drones will do all the stuff in the future that we want. I mean, I've seen stuff in the news where they want to do deliveries for Amazon with drones. That'd be pretty cool.
Those would have to be registered because they're commercial drones.
Yeah.
And this is only talking about non-commercial. But I'm sure Amazon would have them registered anyways.
I've also seen the potential of allowing us to have our own armies of drones to protect our houses and stuff and have surveillance. That'd be a pretty cool measure to protect your home with these flying drones. If I was a criminal looking to break in someone's house and I just saw these drones flying around the house all night, I'd be like, oh, maybe someone else.
I mean, I'm just thinking about, look at even the future of drones. You can have drones with weapons on them. You can just fly around and just go anywhere you want. Ta 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 ta.
Well, we already do that.
Exactly, and I'm just saying it's going to get even more in the future.
Maybe in the future, it'll be so normal to have drones, kids will just be flying drones around all the time.
Imagine a terrorist attack if someone strapped a bomb to a drone and flew it into a crowd.
Oh,
People would
God.
be like, oh, look, it's a drone, and then boom. Just be careful, people, be careful.
Kris, do you have any thoughts on drones?
Y'all pretty much isolated the main points, that there are some certain situations, such as emergency scenarios, where they do need to clear traffic. I mean, it's analogous to what happens with our automobiles. So it's not an unreasonable request.
Yeah. Not so much more beyond our just meandering speculation about the future of drones, but let's get into some immigration stuff, because I know there's a lot to talk about immigration this week.
And my mood just went downhill.
Well, on the show in the past, we've talked about how illegal immigration is down 70% under Trump, but now we have...
As far as entries.
Yes, as far as entries. But now we have information and data to show that immigration arrests are up 38% under Trump.
Which is pretty good. We've really unshackled ICE. I've been seeing ICE reports every single day of them, just hitting these illegal aliens where it counts, and we're really doing a good job with it. Trump hired something like 10,000 new ICE agents, so that can really be responsible for a lot of this.
Yeah, they said that between January 22nd and April 29th, ICE arrested just under 11,000 people whose immigration violations were their only marks on their record. Yeah. So it's not only are we going after the criminals, which we've already talked about, we're going after the people who are not really criminals other than the fact that they are breaking our immigration laws, which does make them a criminal, but obviously, you want to go after both.
Well, per se, I've dealt with Democrats and whatnot trying to make the argument oh, but they're not committing any crime, but that's kind of false. Most of them do commit identity fraud so that they can work in the country, and a lot of people are victims of illegal aliens, taking advantage of other people and stealing their identity. But I'm down with deporting them anyways, even if they haven't done anything. I mean, who's to say they're not going to commit any crime down the line? So
Right, and this article also says that of all the people in total that ICE has arrested this year, 75% do have a criminal record already.
which is great. And as we're getting more of these arrests and deportations, everyone is always just like, well, you can't round up 11 million, which I believe it's way more than that. But you can't round up 11 million people and deport them all. Well, guess what? As we continue to do this stuff, they're going to self-deport because they don't want to have to deal with ICE doing this to them. So really, the more we ramp up these arrests, the more that they'll just leave themselves, which we have been seeing, so... any thoughts on that, or should we just move into these countries not cooperating? Okay, let's get to the next thing. Well, ICE has identified that there are 12 countries that are currently uncooperative with deportations, and there's 47 countries that are at risk of becoming non-cooperative. The different countries that we currently have that do not accept deportations are Burma, Cambodia, China, Cuba, Eritrea, Guinea, Hong Kong, Iran, Laos, Morocco, South Sudan, and Vietnam, which we don't really see a lot of illegal aliens from those countries, so I guess it's good in that sense, but it does kind of suck that there's countries that aren't working with us, and 47 countries at risk of non-compliance is not good either, so...
I mean, if you have people in your country illegally and they're from a different country, you should be able to send them back to whatever country they came from.
Which, under current U.S. law, we are allowed to refuse to issue visas to these nations because of those reasons. We still do in a lot of circumstances, but I don't know, I guess that's something to keep an eye on, and if you didn't know that those countries don't cooperate, that's just something to know. But let's get into this Democrat representatives comparing immigration law to slavery. Do you got that stuff up?
Yeah. So this guy's referring to the Davis-Oliver Act, which I don't think it's been passed yet, but it would hire over 10,000 additional ICE officers, and it would also allow state and local agencies to enforce the immigration laws that are already on the books. But it would also cut certain grants for sanctuary cities and make it easier to deport illegal immigrants. So it sounds like it's very similar to the Texas law that we passed. But there was a Democratic representative from Texas. Oh my God, I just realized it's Sheila Jackson Lee. Oh my God. Okay, well, her and another guy are calling it the Steve Bannon Donald Trump deportation bill.
Oh no.
And she said, and I'm just going to, this actually wasn't her, but this was another guy who made a comment. I think this is what the actual thing was referring to. He said, we all want to make sure that what we continue to be a nation of laws, but I also want to say in the words of Martin Luther King Jr. from the Birmingham jail, an unjust law is no law at all. Slavery was also the law of the land, but there were many people who sought to change that, to change what were at the time extremely unjust laws. And that, in my opinion, is the case in terms of immigration law. So they're openly comparing our immigration laws to slavery, even though they have nothing to do with each other.
And they don't hold this standard for other countries. They don't complain about deportations in Mexico, which they never really talk about either, because it kind of screws up their narrative a lot. Chris, do you have some thoughts on our immigration laws being slavery?
Yeah, I like how they talked about the Civil War comparisons. That there is this leftist misconception that the abolitionists are analogous to people who want to free the blacks in America. No, the bulk of the abolitionists back then, not only were they a minority population, the more mainstream abolitionists, they wanted to free the blacks and send them back to Africa. So they'll actually be more in line with our fight against illegal immigration.
The person who said this was Washington Representative Pramila Jayapal. She's the one who actually made that quote. But her only argument really is that she thinks that it's an unjust law. And she has no way to kind of put the two laws together to say how they're similar. All she's saying is that, slavery was unjust, and this is unjust. Therefore, it's just like slavery.
Which, she doesn't even go into how it's unjust.
No, all she says is she literally says, that's my opinion of this.
Good argument you made there.
She needs a Stephen Molyneux soundtrack.
I mean,
not
it's-
an argument.
Stefan Molyneux.
Oh, Stephen Molyneux. My apologies.
It's literally comparing apples to oranges.
You know, quickly, you brought up Stefan Molyneux. Simon Roach, who we're looking to have on next week, was actually on Stefan Molyneux. So it's going to be our biggest guest ever. He's been on a lot of news. So it's a big capture for like a small podcast like us, but we know him well in person. So, but let's get into this report that we have out of Colorado. Do you have that up, or I can talk about it?
I have it up. So there's a report coming out that says that Colorado taxpayers have spent $500 million to detain illegal immigrants.
Actually, $522 million.
Yeah, $522 million since 1997, which comes out to about $25 million annually.
To house criminal aliens in the state.
Yeah, in state, county, and municipal jails.
So, this is all money that could have been spent on anything else, but this is money being spent on people that don't need to be here. You know, the people that are always saying, like, oh, you can't cut spending education or this and that, this and that. We could have spent this money on education that you care about so much.
Yeah, so we definitely, and that's why I'm glad that border crossings are down 70%. That's why I'm glad that deportations and arrests are up like 38%. Because you can finally, you keep doing that, you're going to be able to cut this money out of the budget and move it to other places. You can increase funding for education, and it won't, and it won't do a thing, so it's good.
Which these aren't even the only instances that we're having to spend money on illegal aliens. If you go back to our episode with Priscilla last week, she was, the one that we interviewed that's a border resident who supports Donald Trump. She was, telling us how illegal aliens take huge advantage of our hospitals because they can't be denied service. And guess who pays for all that stuff? American taxpayers. So, we're literally paying for the health care of foreign nationals. And this is just out of Colorado, too. And Colorado is not, a big state that has a huge illegal alien problem. It's way worse in other states, way worse in Texas, way worse in California, way worse across the board. Think of all the billions of dollars that we're spending on housing these people that just don't need to be here. Everyone complains about, oh, the wall is going to be so expensive, $20 billion. We're going to recoup that cost and money that we're not spending on foreign nationals. Once we get these people out, it will pay for itself.
I mean, we've said before, the U.S. spends on average about $100 billion on illegal immigrants every year. The wall's only going to cost $20 to $30 billion. Like, that's a no-brainer right there.
The estimates I've seen is only like $15 billion to like $20 billion.
Personally, for me, I'm expecting it to go over budget to about 35 to 40. But even then, that's still significantly lower than what you're spending per year.
I don't know. We got the real estate president who, has always been known for under budget, under, schedule. I do believe that we can get it below.
Well, we'll talk about that more once we get to Saudi Arabia later in the program.
Yeah, we got some good developments there as far as wall stuff, which no one would expect. But
I have a bad joke about this. If we want to pair our fight against illegal immigration to slavery, but we also want to build a wall, I say, hey, why don't we get these prisoners to pay for their housing and put them in, bring back chain gangs, have them build the wall.
Yeah. But that would be pretty mean,
I mean, we are allowed to do that. Prisoners are allowed to be forced to work.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with that. I know, like, some people do.
I mean, come on, if these illegal aliens are such hard workers, why do we put them to use?
I mean, there was this one sheriff, I think, up in, like, Boston or somewhere in Massachusetts, who said he was volunteering his prisoners to be able to use on the wall. Of course, that was back like in February, I think, but still,
But just a couple more things from this report that I want to get into. 4% of the state's budget goes towards paying to house these illegal aliens. That's not an insignificant number at all.
And that's Colorado, right?
Yeah, and they only have 7.8% of the Colorado prisons. The prison population is illegal aliens, where if you look at the national average, just Mexican nationals alone is 15% of our jails. So illegal aliens are a bit more than that in total. Think of how much money we are wasting on housing these people that committed crimes, not sending their best. And these figures don't account for county or local jails either. So they are spending even more than what's reported. But that's just to give people a good insight on how much money we are wasting on housing these people. Let's get into these terror tools that we're using now, though. Do you have this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah. So this is out of Detroit, and they said that the FBI, or at least, the FBI, is developing a cell phone snooping device that's being used for counterterrorism measures, but they're now using it to hunt undocumented immigrants. And there's one story that came out of Detroit where agents in the Metro Detroit area were able to find Rudy Carcamo Carranza, 23, who was twice deported, and it was a restaurant worker from El Salvador. And he originally got in trouble for drunken driving in a hit-and-run crash. And this is a guy who was back. Like, we'd already deported the guy twice.
Yeah.
So, first of all, he should not be here. But I'm glad that the FBI is using, like, they said they're using cell tower communications to, create, just being able to track the guy down.
Yeah.
So,
I think it's pretty cool that we're taking, even harsher measures as far as finding these people so we can deport them. I mean, that's going to, that goes in tandem with these increased arrests. I mean, if we're starting to use now anti-terror tactics as far as getting rid of illegal aliens, those numbers should only go up.
yeah, they said that the device they're using is known as Hailstorm or Stingray. And what it does is it tricks nearby cell phones into providing location data, which can then interrupt cell service on all devices within a targeted location. They do need a judge's approval to use it, however. But once they do that, however it works is however it works. But they're able to track the individual down by disrupting communication to everyone else's cell phones.
Pretty cool stuff. But let's go into the rest of the national news. Let's get into this Seth Rich stuff, because this should be the biggest story in the country right now, most definitely. Do you want to talk about it, Bobby?
Yeah, well, I'll kind of go into a little background into Seth Rich. So on July 10th, 2016, Seth Rich, who was a DNC staffer, was murdered. And the official police documents or whatever, they said that it was a robbery. But what happened was he was shot twice in the back, and nothing in his house was stolen, nothing on his body was stolen. So it's very unlikely that the thing was even a robbery. And so a lot of people kind of came up with theories that he was murdered because of information he knew, and they thought that he might have been the person who was the person behind the original DNC leaked emails that went to WikiLeaks.
Which is what I believed happened from the very get-go.
Oh, I absolutely believe it. But now, Rod Wheeler, who is a private investigator who was hired by Seth Rich's family, he said that he now has evidence to show that Seth Rich was the person who provided that information to WikiLeaks. So if it's confirmed that he actually did provide that information, then the fact that he was murdered, and it was obviously covered up, because there's no way you can look at that case and say that it was a robbery, that has heavy implications for the Democratic Party.
This means, no, there was no Russia. This came out from someone in your own organization that was disgruntled with where it's going, which, there's a lot of these Bernie people, because he was a Bernie guy,
right, that
are super upset with the direction that the DNC has been going. But the FBI is not investigating this case. Currently.
Right, and it was right after that information broke. Was this the Seth Rich story broke, and it was like 2 hours later, maybe an hour and a half later, when the story about Trump released top secret information to the Russians broke. So they obviously did that to try to bury this story, because this was definitely gaining traction everywhere.
No, yeah, there's been massive radio silence all across the mainstream media, which has actually been pushing a lot of people to even talk about this more. It's the Streisand effect. The more you try to hide something, people talk about it.
It's been trending on Twitter ever since. So it shows that, alternative media is definitely trying to cover this. But the one thing that I wanted to get to was that a guy who said he was a spokesperson, using air quotes, for the family, came out and said
From the DNC.
Yeah, they said, no, that's not true. But that guy is a paid DNC spokesman. And what's interesting is, even though he said he claimed to talk to the family, obviously you said the mainstream media is not covering this at all. What is covering it is alternative media and the internet. The family made a video that was released yesterday, or possibly the day before, Literally, just them two sitting in front of a camera, thanking the internet for bringing attention to their story and hoping they can find out who actually killed their son.
Yeah, I saw that video and they were really emotional about it. But is that video going to go in the mainstream media?
Of course not.
Of
But that
course
proves
not.
to you that that quote-unquote spokesman who was trying to speak to their family, that was obviously a guy who was the DNC guy hired by the DNC to try to kill the story. Obviously that didn't happen. But, there's a lot of stuff, especially on 4chan and Poll, that have tried to release information about kind of connecting the dots here and there from Seth Rich. But there's strong evidence that if you're actually able to point out the fact that he was murdered and it was a cover-up, that could go all the way to the top of the DNC.
Yeah, this is a major scandal.
This could be like a, I hate to say, like a Watergate type thing because everyone likes to put the word gate behind everything. But the more this goes on, if you actually investigate this, you could have top-level DNC people go to jail for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. Kris, do you have some thoughts on what we've been seeing with the Seth Rich story?
Yeah, the Blackout versus Seth Rich story, the basis of the DNC leaks, it's the basis for the DNC lawsuits, and it's just that's another story that's getting me a blackout as well. Not so long ago, the DNC defended itself in court, saying we don't owe anybody a fair primary process, but they receive public taxpayer funds.
Yeah, and even one of the WikiLeaks emails that was released was something John Podesta said. And they were talking about leaks that were coming out of the DNC. And he said, if we find out who did it, we need to make an example out of them.
Yeah.
And that came out, I think it was, if I'm not mistaken here, you can look this up. It was about 2 days before he was killed. That email went out.
Yeah.
And then 2 days later, the guy who, it's now pretty much confirmed he was behind the leaks, is found dead in a quote-unquote robbery, which nothing was stolen. It was obviously he was assassinated. And it was obviously someone was hired by the DNC to do it.
Which is ridiculous. But, Kris, you bring up that DNC lawsuit. Let's get into that. That's currently going on right now, actually, which should be also huge news. But, we're not going to talk about that.
Oh no, Trump has 2 scoops of ice cream.
2 scoop. Well, we can't talk about what's happening with these DNC lawsuits. There's a lot of ice cream news to get into.
We need to impeach Trump because he gets 2 scoops and everyone else gets 1.
Hey, did you hear that Trump was eating chocolate cake?
Was it yummy chocolate cake?
But Bobby, do you got some stuff on this lawsuit?
I think Kris, you were the one who wanted to bring it up, right?
Yeah, the lawsuit. It's I'm pulling it up at the moment, but
Or maybe Enzo, you want to go over it a little bit?
It's just about the media blackout, the lawsuit in general.
Yeah, I was listening to someone on Stefan Molyneux the other day. I'll look up who it was. But there's a lot of people as far as the Bernie supporters go that are, pushing for this lawsuit because this is, one, it breaks the DNC's own laws on how to run an election. But two, like, if the people that donated knew that Bernie wasn't even allowed to have a chance, they wouldn't have done so. Their money was fraudulently taken from them. And, people should be able to expect a fair election for their candidate.
Right, and that kind of goes back to one of the things that Seth Rich was working on. One of the things that they said he did was he helped develop an app that people were able to use to find out their polling locations. Now, every state website releases information as to where their polling locations were, but the Hillary Clinton website during different primaries released their own information as to where to go to vote for her. And if you remember back during the primaries, especially the Arizona one, people were showing up to different locations to try to vote, and they were being turned down because they said it wasn't a legitimate place to go. And so that's one of the things that Seth Rich was looking into is, okay, why are our people not being allowed to vote on these locations that they said they were? But when they go to Hillary Clinton's website, those locations were not the ones that were being shut down. So you got to wonder, was there even more collusion with, with local party leaders to try to get, areas where they knew there would be a lot of non-Hillary support, try to get those people to go to fake locations so they couldn't vote.
Yeah, I remember especially the big one where that happened was Nevada. And do you remember how bad it got with, it was Barbara Boxer that was out there. They were like really shouting her down. It got really rowdy out there.
It got violent at their convention a couple of months later as well.
And they also suppressed a lot of independents from voting. I know that happened in New York. I believe that happened in New Hampshire. I believe that happened in California. So, and you look at how the superdelegates went and how all the donations as far as support went, and Debbie Washman and Schultz connection. It seemed from the very get-go that they wanted to go with Hillary, even though Bernie Sanders would have beat Donald Trump. I'm 100% sure about that. But thank you for helping us win DNC.
Yeah, absolutely. But, that just goes to show you, there's a lot of corruption that's not being talked about right now. And hopefully with this investigation, you'll be able to blow this stuff wide open. Because all it takes is one match, and you can burn down an entire forest.
Yeah, but the individual who's kind of leading that class action lawsuit against the DNC, who was interviewed by Stefan Molyneux, is Jared Beck. I listened to it. It's about a 30-minute interview, and it's really good. I recommend that anyone listen to it. But let's go into this Chelsea Manning thing, because I know, Chris,
Bradley Manning.
You're really pissed off at the moment. Why don't you talk about it? Because I don't know it very well.
Okay. For me, I support Edward Snowden's WikiLeaks.
Or before we get into it, who is Bradley Manning? Because people, you got to assume they don't know.
Yeah. Bradley Manning had a huge treasure trove of leaks to WikiLeaks that the biggest of these damages were burning informants and these private diplomatic channels. For myself, the greatest offense is burning around 900 Afghan informants. And thing is, if you collaborate with American forces, that's a huge personal risk, not just yourself, but your family and your village. And this was completely reckless. I'm fine. As I said, I support Edward Snowden. I'm completely fine with showing the world how we spy on American citizens, how we spy on the world citizens. But to have innocent people be burned in the crossfire, that is unforgivable. And that's why that Bradley Manning is not getting its pronouns.
Oh, yeah. While Bradley Manning was in jail, he came out as Chelsea Manning. He's a transgender now. But looks like Bradley Manning, Chelsea Manning, is going to be walking free now. So that's how that court decision went. Bobby, do you have any thoughts on this stuff? Or?
Well, I'd just like to say that Bradley Manning / Chelsea Manning, whichever personal pronouns you want to use, was sentenced to 35-year prison term. And because of the fact that she is now leaving prison, that pretty much closes the case on that.
Thanks, Obama.
Yeah, I don't really have any thoughts on this. I don't understand the situation so well.
But it's definitely something worth noting, just because of how important that case was to national security. Just to know that the Mr. / Mrs. Manning is walking free now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, another tidbit of why other people are ticked off at Bradley Manning is the release of those diplomatic channels. There's a lot of people who pinpoint that the diplomatic channels had a huge role in influencing the Arab Spring, and we know how much of a crap show that was.
The Arab Spring was so hectic. Let's get into the stuff with Erdogan, though, because I did see this.
This was hilarious, personally.
Well, it's terrible stuff.
Yeah, that's why it's hilarious.
But recently in Washington, D.C., do you know what day of the week it was?
This was on May 17th.
Yeah, so there was protesters against Erdogan. There are some Syrians, some Turks, some Kurds. And there's a video showing, Erdogan, the Turkish dictator, going to his bodyguards he tells them to go beat up these protesters. This is not in Turkey where you'd expect this to happen.
Yeah,
this
was
is Washington, D.C.
I was going to say this was right outside the Turkish embassy in D.C., I think, right?
And they really hurt a lot of these protesters. Do you have the information up on this stuff?
Yeah, they said that 9 people were injured when the Turkish security personnel started punching and kicking them. And these are people that were waving Kurdish flags. So these were people who support the Kurds, which, I personally support the Kurds. But one of the protesters, named Lucy Oysoyan, told ABC News, she said, all of a sudden they just ran towards us. Someone was beating me in the head nonstop, and I thought, okay, I'm on the ground already. What's the purpose to beat me? So it's not like those people were just trying to, get them to move back. They were actually out there looking to hurt them, and hurt them bad.
Yeah, it's insane that you can have a foreign president send his thugs out on, the people that were protesting. A lot of them were American citizens. He's allowed to just send his thugs out to go beat him up. And are there any sort of arrests for what happened?
Well, the D.C. police they released a statement saying they pledged to, quote, pursue charges against the individuals involved, which pretty much means nothing's going to happen.
No, but there is video of this if you want to see these protesters getting beat up by Erdogan's bodyguards. You can go see it. It's pretty violent. Kris, did you see this stuff?
No, I didn't see it, but I heard of it. But the audacity of Erdogan.
Yeah, he's gotten so brazenly arrogant. I mean, we've been reporting about Erdogan since the beginning of the show, and he's a bad dude. I don't really like being allies with Turkey so much. But
anyways,
any more, or should we get into this voter fraud stuff?
let's get to the voter fraud.
So, last week on the show, we reported about Trump issued an executive order into looking into voter fraud, which is being headed by Mike Pence. But it looks like there's evidence to show that there's a voter fraud scheme out of Dallas. Do you have the stuff on this, Bobby?
Yeah, so this wasn't from the 2016 general election. This was from a May 6th election that happened up in Dallas. And it was involving mail-in ballots of Democratic races. And they were targeting elderly residents in a very contested area during a city council race. And they said that there was 2 districts that ended up in limbo because of the fact that the favorite and the front runner pretty much had like almost even numbers of votes. And in investigating, they said that they believe that there's a lot of voter fraud. I'm trying to go through the article to see exactly what they said happened. It's it's a very long article, but they said that during the runoff race, one candidate received 317 mail-in ballots, and the other candidate received 159. But they said that they had rejected 98 ballots, and then another 673 ballots were rejected by the district attorney's office.
Yeah, so this is just kind of to show, because, you always see on the left, they always say, oh, there's no evidence of voter fraud, none at all. Even saying that there could be is jeopardizing our democracy, which, they always say because it usually benefits them. But this is just an instance where, hey, looks like there's a good chance that there is voter fraud going on.
Right, and a lot of it, they said, had to do with the fact that it was mail-in ballots. Which mail-in ballots, you can understand why those would be easy to throw away or fake or do anything like that.
Yeah, a lot of people, think, oh, voter fraud, it must be happening at the booths. But most of the time it doesn't even happen at the election booths, how they do this stuff. Any other thoughts on this, or just a quick thing to touch?
I was going to say, you probably know more about this than I do, but isn't there the possibility that there might have been voter fraud in Hays County during the 2016 election? Or
yeah,
at least the runoff?
And we're actually looking to have Sam Brennan on, who, recently was actually, they called him to leave the court because he was testifying on this stuff. But it looks like in our own Hays County, something like 100 or 1,200 votes actually weren't counted or something, which, Sam Brennan was a candidate for mayor, and we all supported him and helped him on his campaign. And, if Sam Brennan lost the election because of this, voter fraud or voter suppression, that's really bad.
So, if that happened here and that happened in Dallas, that's got to be happening all over the place. And this never gets talked about.
I mean, it happens virtually everywhere in the country. They just don't talk about it. You can find instances of this stuff happening all the time.
I mean, like we were talking about a couple weeks ago, or last week when we were talking about the voter fraud, when they had the recounts in Michigan and Wisconsin, it was the Michigan one, I believe, was shut down once they started discovering that there was voter fraud that had happened in Detroit.
Tons of illegitimate registration, which is why I always advocate for purging the registration rolls, which it's kind of funny. You actually look at what the Democrats call for. They call for automatic registration when you turn 18. So they understand that more people registered usually helps them out because they often get these people registered and then they vote on their behalf. I mean, that's how they also do the thing where, people die and they still vote Democrat. So, yeah, just trying to highlight voter fraud in the country. Hopefully we can uncover a lot of voter fraud with the executive order Trump took last week. I know we're going to get the results for that in 2018. Though.
Right. And one other thing that we no longer have to uncover, however, is the media's bias.
Yeah.
So there was a Harvard study that was done, and the information was released this week, that came out and it found out that over 90% of all media coverage of Trump is negative. Over 90%. Now on CNN, 93% negative. NBC, 93%. CBS, 91. New York Times, 87. Washington Post, 83. Even Fox News is about 52% negative, 48% positive. Which I personally think, if you're half and half, that's about the best way you can possibly go.
Which makes more sense.
Yeah, it
really.
would make sense to be half negative, half positive. That way you can actually have discussions. But when you're 93% of your coverage is negative, there's obviously a bias there. And you wonder why people call CNN fake news.
Which, if you say on their network, you suddenly, for some odd reason, have connection problems. Remember when that happened to Bernie Sanders making the joke?
That's happened to multiple people on CNN. They've tried to point out something that CNN didn't want them to say, and then they've just cut them off. Say, sorry, we lost connection to the satellite feed.
Was it Don Lemon who said, being called fake news is the equivalent of being called the N-word?
I think so. And I think... Even what's the one CNN reporter's name who's always doing weird stuff?
I don't know. I don't.
Not Brian Stetler. Jake Tapper. Jake Tapper said that when his son gets mad at him, he calls him fake news.
Chris, do you have some thoughts on finding out 90% of the news coverage on Donald Trump is negative?
Color me shocked.
So surprised.
But you have to understand that while 90% of all media coverage of Trump is negative, people still get their news from the media, unfortunately. So you wonder why approval ratings are in the 40%, because people are constantly being fed this anti-Trump BS all day long. And a lot of it, as we pointed out, is completely fake. What happens is they'll push a fake story, and then everybody else that's on their side will start covering that fake story. You'll have anonymous sources which have unproven allegations, which pretty much means you can make up whatever you want and say it's an anonymous
Which
source.
happens all the time
right
now.
And then they'll just keep talking about it. You'll post something on Twitter and all your mindless followers will start liking and retweeting it, and then all of a sudden it's being pushed around as fact, and then average everyday people hear it and be like, oh, that's terrible, when in reality there's absolutely nothing there. And then when the administration tries to say something about it, they'll claim that they're lying, and then they'll push a story that Trump had a bad week.
And for bonus points, they publish quiet retractions and corrections a week later.
Right. The original thing that they'll say will get 40,000 retweets, and then the retraction will get like 200.
Yeah, which, how the fake news works, it's just death by 1,000 paper cuts. It's easy to have these retractions which no one sees, but everyone always sees the initial, negative thing that has the anonymous sources, which, if you're someone that sees, constantly these things, that's just painting your picture of, Donald Trump. But just it's unprecedented what is going on as far as how the media is covering him. They did the study over the first 100 days, and just to compare this to past presidents, under Barack Obama, 59% of the coverage was positive. Under George W. Bush, 43% of the coverage was positive, and under Bill Clinton, 40% of the coverage was positive under, a similar 100-day span. So you can really see how partisan the media has gotten, and how there's no such thing as opposing viewpoints allowed. There's no such thing as a fair or balanced kind of coverage. It's gotten out of control. Which, on the show, we openly say, hey, we all support Donald Trump, but we still cover when bad things are happening. We still express our displeasure. Which, if you show how they've talked about these different issues, the only thing that seemed to get overwhelmingly positive coverage was the cruise missile attack in Syria, which we all we all condemned and hated so much. So you can really see where the foreign policy interests of the media stands. Any other thoughts on this, or should we go into that other study we have on the news?
Let's go to the next thing.
So we have another study that came out that shows that journalists drink too much, are unable to control their emotions, and on average have lower brain function than the average individual in the public. Which, myself knowing quite a few journalism majors, I'm not surprised really. But I think we've seen a lot of instances in our own media where this can be true. Do you remember when Donald Trump won and Don Lemon was drunk during the news coverage? And he started getting emotional about how he's so lonely. He's gonna try the next year to find someone. Definitely upper echelon of brain function.
But that really makes you wonder, what is it about being a journalist that makes those people do that? Or is it the fact that they're already like that and that kind of pushes them to be a journalist?
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the case. Us all in the room here, we in particular know someone that writes for the University Star.
Not much brain function going on there.
Should we even say what her name is?
No.
Well,
she doesn't deserve a name.
No.
I'll just say that her name is a month.
Yeah, a month. But she's an open communist that writes pieces for the University Star.
There was one time one of my friends shared an article on Facebook from the University Star, and it was some anti-Trump article, and it was a bunch of just nonsense written in it. And without even reading it, I just commented "Hey, is that article happen to be written by X name?" And he's like, "Yeah, it is. Why?" And I was like, "Yep, I knew it."
I remember I read one of her articles and it said how millennials just across the board reject Donald Trump or something. It didn't even posit the idea that anyone of our student body could support Donald Trump. And I just put in the comments I like what's going on. I want to make America great again. And I actually got thumbs up for even being someone that was oh yeah, this article is super biased. It doesn't represent me or the student body as a whole.
Yeah, it goes into question on why newspapers should even have an opinion section if they can't be responsible with said opinion.
Well, that's what I was saying earlier. When you're openly pushing misinformation, you're openly pushing untrue stories in order to get the people's reaction, in order to trying to change their viewpoint about something that's fake, to try to get them to be anti the current president of the United States, you're trying to undermine our country. That should be an act against this country. You need to start passing laws to try to limit this. Now, I understand there's a whole freedom of the press thing, but at some point that's not. You're committing crimes. You're trying to drive people against the president and the country by pushing untrue information. At some point that's a treasonous act.
I mean,
at the very least, it's false advertisements.
Right.
We've seen just from the Russia quote unquote leaks. I mean, it hurts the nation when people do that. The economy fell just because of the speculation from the Trump impeachment stuff. But just speaking about this person that will not be named, it just goes to show people are ideologically driven from these radical viewpoints to go into journalism. Are there other things from the study that says what they talked about?
It was just overall it was saying that they have lower than average levels of executive functioning. They also have a below average ability to regulate their emotions, suppress biases, solve complex problems, and switch between tasks. And they show show creative and flexible thinking. So they're just not able to function the way normal people are able to function.
When journalism courses are sending their people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're not sending. I'm not going to do the whole meme. Well, they're not sending their best.
I was just going to say, anyone every time I hear someone call themselves a journalist, I automatically like stop caring what they have to say. Or if I'm on Twitter and I go into someone's bio and it says journalist or like writer for CNN or like, opinion blogger at Mother Jones, I'm like, yeah, why should I even listen to you? I know everything you're going to say is like completely stupid.
Listen to my completely unique viewpoints.
That you can read also on every single online newspaper.
But yeah, like I said before in this episode, Trump was right when he called the media the enemy of the American people, because they are.
Yeah, they're the opposition. Let's go into this Anthony Weiner stuff. So, Anthony Weiner, who's married to Huma Abedin, who actually just filed for divorce, surprisingly. She's somehow been behind this guy. It looks like he's pled guilty to a sexting case to a minor. Do you have the stuff on that up, Bobby?
Yeah, so you guys remember back when, this was back in 2015, and he apparently was sexting a minor, a girl who was 15 years old, and he got caught. I mean, the guy's a freaking pervert to begin with. The original story broke back in like 2010, 2011, when he was first kind of caught doing this sort of stuff, when he sent pictures of his wiener. So it was like Wiener's wiener. But anyways, so they finally got to the point where he's pled guilty in the sexting case. So there's a possibility where he might actually have to file as a sex offender. So I think that would be absolutely fantastic. Make sure he doesn't stay anywhere near children at all.
Democrats are not sending their best.
I was going to say, even Trump back in 2013 had a tweet where he said, "Hey, pervert alert, Anthony Weiner's back on the prowl."
He's back on Twitter.
He's back on Twitter.
Better go block him.
He's like, all people with 14-year-old girls need to block him immediately. But no, so I'm glad that Weiner is finally facing some,
Anthony Weiner actually kind of helped us win the election.
Because his laptop was found.
Yeah, he's the reason why the FBI opened the investigation of Hillary Clinton like a week before the election, and they ended that investigation like 3 days before the election. But that did like skew people's thinking in a way. So I'm pretty happy that he's, one, going to jail, and two, he helped Donald Trump be president. So he did his part to make America great again.
But the fact that Anthony Weiner was married to Huma Abedin, who's been friends with Hillary Clinton her entire life, like, this is the people she surrounds herself with.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton is a close friend of Anthony Weiner. But I mean, you can also go into the John Podesta like creepy stuff. I don't get why these people that Hillary surrounds herself have these kind of weird sexual perversions.
If you had an actual investigation into all these people, it would be amazing what perverted stuff you uncover.
Well, that's kind of the basis of the Pizzagate stuff, but we don't need to go into that. Those are kind of weird conspiracies.
Yeah, but before we brew into new conspiracies, let's talk about the old cases. Mm-hmm. So our favorite Clock Boy.
Clock Boy.
Yeah, a federal judge dismissed his $15 million lawsuits against the school didn't do anything wrong. It was from, of course, the reaction is, if he was a white kid with blonde hair, blue eyes, his
to recap who Clock Boy is, when did this happen? I believe it was like 2015.
It was September of 2015.
Yeah, so he's this Muslim kid, Ahmed Muhammad, who claimed to bring in his clock invention, which looked like a suitcase bomb, and like he got arrested by the school because Clock Boy brought a clock bomb thing, and it caused this great controversy because they thought, he's being discriminated against for being a Muslim, and actually remember Obama actually brought him into the White House.
White House, yeah.
The kind of people that Obama
yeah, him and the dildo girls.
But he spent a while in Qatar, I remember. But he came back so he could have this lawsuit. He claimed, we're being discriminated for racial and religious discrimination. But this lawsuit was thrown out. So Clock Boy, your time is up.
Do you know what his father's name was?
No.
Well, his name was Ahmed Muhammad. His father's name was Muhammad Muhammad.
Oh, Muhammad. Not a very original name.
It's like Sirhan.
Yeah, my biggest regret about this is I used to be friends with this fairly little chick before she unfriended me on Facebook. Big surprise there. And she was all about the hashtag I stand with Muhammad. And she got pissed off because I had a hashtag that said I stand with I stand with Ahmed at a safe distance.
I remember the hashtag. That's pretty funny. But didn't his dad had like weird connections or something?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not even mad at the kid. It's his dad is putting up to this.
Yeah.
And that clock project, all I did was took a regular clock, stripped it out to wires and a countdown timer. How are you not?
And then put it in a suitcase.
And how are you not supposed to view it as suspicious? Seriously, if the TSA won't allow you on, then why would a teacher? Why should a teacher ignore it in a school setting?
Wasn't like Obama's like tweet that invited him out was like, cool invention, Ahmed. Why don't you come bring it to the White House?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened.
Which if he brought that invention to the White House, I don't think it would get past the security there. I mean, they're obviously more tight than a public school. But yeah, I've always disliked Clockboy, and I'm glad he's not getting any money from the state for bringing his bomb sort of invention.
Well, let's then segue, I guess, to the next story. And before we actually mention it, I just want to point out, I think last week on the show, or maybe the week before, we were talking about how different Confederate monuments...
It was last week.
It was last week. How different Confederate monuments in New Orleans were being taken down. And they finally removed the very famous Robert E. Lee statue from Robert E. Lee Square. And I remember Chris and I and a couple other people, we drove to New Orleans during spring break. And we weren't able to actually go see the statue, but we drove by it multiple times. And I have a couple of pictures of it. And that statue, which has been up for a very long time, actually finally got taken down. And I know there's a lot of people who went there to try to protest that statue getting taken down and whatnot. But it's unfortunate that this is happening. But anyways, what we wanted to actually get into was that Alabama lawmakers have actually passed a law approving protections for Confederate monuments to try to make sure that they don't get taken down. So that's very good.
Yeah, which is pretty cool. They no longer have any sort of Confederate monuments in New Orleans. And as I said in the show last week, I just find it pretty disgusting when they take these things down. I mean, these people, they suffered through the Civil War. They are their own distinct people, and Reconstruction was really hard in the South. These people, they scrape together money just so they can put up these monuments so they cannot be forgotten through time. But now we're trying to erase their existence from our own history like we're goddamn ISIS. So
And Robert E. Lee wasn't even a bad guy. He didn't really like slavery. He was for the North. The only reason he fought for the South was because he was more loyal to Virginia than he was to the country itself. He originally, the North, the Union Army first went to him saying, hey, we want you to fight for us. And he said, sorry, I can't fight against my home state. If you're going to leave any of those up, leave Robert E. Lee up, for God's sake.
Yeah, and there's a misconception that this is all just white people trying to protect white history. I myself, I am a Filipino immigrant, and I have many colored friends as well who say, no, we shouldn't remove Confederate statues. This shouldn't be our knee-jerk reaction to something that someone might find offensive. If anything, the answer to Civil War statues is more Civil War statues. Have more money. Instead of having a historically sanitized public space, let's have an historically enriching public space. I'll accept the grievances that there's too many Confederate statues in certain areas and not enough Union representation. Fine. Let's have statues to Mary Turnbull's Day. Let's have statues to the free runaway slaves. Let's have statues to Ulysses Grant. Let's tell both sides of the story instead of erasing it from public discourse.
And I mean, just when you're removing these monuments, it's just going to go into, we're going to start removing monuments to the Founding Fathers. I've seen people that have called for the removal of Confederate monuments to take out George Washington monuments and Thomas Jefferson monuments because, they're these evil racists and they had slaves. We're just trying to get rid of our own history. It's stupid.
I mean, I mentioned this quote last week, but one of the guys says, we're correcting history here. That's what their end goal is.
And the people that come out to these protests to say, oh, take down these racist statues, they're never black people. It's always white people. The people in these cities, they don't care. New Orleans is not a well-off city. It doesn't help them at all to take down these monuments, but it allows these politicians to say, like, oh, we're doing something for our community, as they don't do anything for their community.
Yeah. Removing the statue of Robert E. Lee isn't going to fix the failing school system. It isn't going to fix the non-diverse economy. It isn't going to fix the rampant gambling, poverty, and homelessness that occurs within New Orleans. But it's just these politicians, they just want to virtue signal, and I mean, this might be controversial, but I think that's why democracy is a failed experiment.
Well, I agree.
Should we get into this Pentagon stuff, Bobby?
Yeah, we'll just quickly mention it. It's not really something we need to go into detail of. But Trump has ordered the Pentagon to utterly annihilate ISIS. Now, if you understand kind of how the war against ISIS is currently going, we've pretty much surrounded ISIS right now in the region, and he pretty much just gave the order to just obliterate what's left of them.
And if you look at our recent communications with the Russians, it looks like we're actually going to start cooperating now more with the Russian military as far as taking out ISIS, which, I don't really want to be fighting these foreign wars, but I'm kind of okay with getting rid of ISIS. Of all the things in the world, I feel like we're doing a good cause for humanity when we do that, so.
I mean, that's one of the things Trump run on. He said we want to bomb the shit out of ISIS, so might as well do it.
Guess what? We're about to bomb the shit of ISIS. Campaign promise. But, I want to go into this Tom Perez thing, because this is definitely really funny. I know you know a lot about this, Bobby.
This was hilarious. Well, I'll kind of just I'll say what happened beforehand. So, Tom Perez, who's the DNC chairman, he was going to be giving a speech at the California Democratic Party convention, and there were a lot of protesters out there beforehand, and they were like trying to heckle him while he was starting to get on the stage. And so the guy who's the chairman of the California Democrat Party got on the stage, and he told the protesters, he said, "Shut the fuck up and go outside." Like, to their own people. Like, these weren't like Republicans who were protesting. These were like largely, Bernie type people who were protesting against the establishment DNC.
Yeah, it goes to show the civil war in the Democratic Party is huge. And, as the media doesn't report about it, it just shows you how nuclear the thing really is. There's so many people in the party that just don't feel like it represents them anymore. They're not even willing to have fair elections. They keep on saying, like, oh, we want to get money out of politics as the Democratic Party continues to take corporate money. The Democratic establishment supported the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Keystone Pipeline, as most people didn't support that. You can go on and on about different instances where the progressive base that I do believe at this point is at least half of the Democratic Party is just being alienated further and further. And now, the officials for the Democratic National Party are being booed by their own people. And how does the establishment respond? They said, shut the fuck up and go outside.
And that's exactly what ended up happening during his speech. They said they ended up booing him the entire time.
And do you remember, if we go back to the Democratic National Convention during the summer when they had to build that giant wall to keep out the Bernie protesters?
Showing that walls actually work?
Or do you remember the people that actually came to the convention that started it seemed like they were kidnapped and they were trying to communicate messages out to get help, and they'd take those signs stronger together, and I forget what they wrote, but they're trying to get help us or whatever.
Yeah, they had Sharpies and they were altering the letters on them and stuff.
They covered their mouths with tape and stuff. I love the Democratic methods of protest, especially now that they're using it against their own party. I remember seeing footage. There were so many people that supported Bernie that ended up walking out of the Democratic National Convention. They were so fed up. I remember seeing this footage of one lady who supported Bernie, where she was so mad she immediately went out and just put on a Trump hat. She's just yeah, I'm gonna vote for Trump. I want you people to lose. I want this message to reach you people, which doesn't seem to be the case really at the moment. Kris, do you have some thoughts on just, I guess, both what happened with Tom Perez in California, but just the civil war and the left in general?
Yeah, it's the left. They have not saying no. They're not getting it that populism is on the rise. They need to But the establishment is afraid of losing their grip. So we have Hillary coming out of the woodwork, even though she lost to Trump, the man who had the entire world against him. And we had Nancy Pelosi, who was on a few months after the election, saying, you know what, I don't think that people want a change in the Democratic Party. They're so dense.
Yeah, and even, like Elizabeth Warren used to be someone that these progressives all supported, but then she sold out to Hillary Clinton, and she immediately got condemned by all of her supporters. These people that supported Bernie, they're not dumb. Well, I mean, I kind of think they're dumb in some ways. But, they remember. They remember when they get slighted, I remember them complaining about how, CNN polls were, biased and rigged against them when we would go out to these viewing parties for Bobcats for Bernie and stuff. And, they were the ones that were saying, hey, we want to see the stuff in the emails from Hillary that show the rigging. And if you look at the WikiLeaks, it does show the rigging in the elections. Now they have this lawsuit, and this stuff's not going away. It's only going to continue. And as the Democratic Party continues not to have any sort of platform and stand for anything, I mean, we didn't even mention the thing that they did where they said, fuck Trump. Bobby, do you want to tell us about that little thing they did?
Yeah, and that's also what happened was, I think it was the same guy who said that, who told them to go outside. The chairman of the Democratic Party of California, during his speech he was giving, this was at the Democratic Party convention in Sacramento on May 19th. He actually led a chant inside the hall, getting all the delegates to raise both middle fingers and chant, fuck Trump, multiple times.
For 2 minutes.
Yeah, and he said, everyone with me, all together now, let's do it. And they started doing that. That's completely childish behavior, personally.
It just reminds me of 1984 where they had the 2-minute hates, and they just start yelling. This is what you're reduced down to. The only thing that you stand for is opposition to Donald Trump and just being children about it, I guess.
And that's one of the things that they're pushing Russia so hard. They have no other... what platform does the Democratic Party have right now?
Just nothing.
Nothing. They have nothing.
I mean, what are they going to run on in 2018 when they claim they're going to take back the House? What? What have they done? What do they even have to promise for their constituents? We're going to continue to just do nothing. Yeah, they keep on saying that they're going to get back the House, but I just don't believe it. They keep on saying that they're going to get back the Senate. I don't believe it.
If anything, the Republicans are probably going to stay about even in the House, and we're going to get that. We're probably going to stand a very good chance of getting the supermajority in the Senate. I mean, as we said before, of the 33 seats that are up for re-election, 20 of them are Democrat seats, and 9 of those are in states that Trump won.
Yeah.
So a lot of those are states like Missouri and states like North Dakota and Montana, which I don't even know why they have Democrats as their senators anyways.
Yeah.
But a lot of those were people that were elected in 2012 when Obama became president. They rode his coattails into victory. So now that Trump is president, things are a lot different. You think those same people that voted for that after seeing what's happened are going to continue to vote Democrat? I doubt it in many cases. So there's a strong chance that, we could have a veto-proof majority in the Senate by the time this thing's done.
Which would be amazing. Then we can start really doing some stuff that needs to be done. Funding this wall, getting this tax reform stuff through. Whatever we're not able to get by the 2018 election, we should start being able to do. And, if we can get most of the things Trump ran under done, 2020 is in the bag.
Absolutely. And that's what I was saying is, there's a reason why, especially in the Rust Belt states, they voted for him for largely economic matters. And the economy has been doing great. Those jobs have been returning. You think they're going to betray him when he goes up there and says, I promised you this, you got it. Vote for me again.
And when Trump is there giving rallies in 2020, he's going to have things he can point to.
Yeah. 2016 was all, here's what I want to do. 2020 is going to be, here's what I've done.
Yeah.
So.
But with that said, any other comments, or should we get into current year college craziness?
Let's get into it.
The racist, sexist, homophobic, xenophobic.
You're fucking a white male!
You Die, cis, scum.
You will not divide us. You will not divide us. You will not divide us. You will not divide us.
It's time for some current year college craziness.
Current year college craziness. Always my favorite segment of the show to get into because every single week these colleges seem to get crazier. I thought they were going to let up. School's over. But, I guess not. But, y'all ready for some current year college craziness?
Yeah.
Aye.
Yeah, there's two ways to respond. Hell yeah, or, oh god. So this first story is UC Berkeley newspaper has just released a podcast of students having sex. Do you got this story up, Bobby?
Yeah, it's literally recordings of them, sound recordings of them having sex.
Really good stuff that the UC Berkeley stuff is coming out with. Not degenerate at all.
They said it's entitled, quote-unquote, surprise porn is the title, and it begins with a woman named Ashley speaking softly and introducing the little treat put together. And then for the next 5 minutes, listeners are given a show featuring various moans, vibrator hums, and other sounds that someone not exposed to Berkeley's sexual enlightenment might have problems identifying.
Now, this episode, Surprise Porn actually has done fairly well. You know, it does better than us. It got 1,227 listens. Definitely some of their best stuff that they put out. But, just want to say some other titles of some things that have come out of that newspaper. So they wrote one column about how gay hookup app Grindr is a perpetuator of bedside racism. They have another one just called Big Pussy. They have one that was titled White Supremacy Produces Disproportionate Environmental Pollution. And another one called Growing Use of Soy Products Have Global Consequences. So, it kind of goes in tandem with what that study said about journalists being dumb people that are bad. Yeah, these are people that write for college newspapers. They're all trying to, someday write for the New York Times or the Washington Post, and this is what's coming out of their hard investigative journalism. They make podcasts where people fuck. Do you have any thoughts, Chris or Bobby?
Man, I just gotta say, they're getting 1,200 listens. I wish we were getting 1,200 listens.
I feel like we provide better content.
Yeah, and speaking of stupid content, what you brought up, the Grindr encourages bedside racism. I mean, before I got into this monogamous relationship, I was pretty generous. In many ways, I still am. I'm not denying that. But you see profiles where guys, they say exactly what they want. They say, hey, no fats, no femmes, no blacks, no Latinos, no Asians, whatever. There's someone, a few wants to say hey, I don't like white guys, whatever. I'm sorry, but no one's owed your body, no one's owed your sexual attraction.
Yeah, aren't these the people that always talk about consent's so important, but then if you don't give certain people consent, you're just a racist bigot who hates them?
And fatphobic. Don't forget that.
You're talking about to me yesterday when we were hanging out another instance where people are up in arms about how they wouldn't have sex with HIV gays.
Yeah. Oh man, there are many times where I just wish Mike Pence had all the shock paddles for the gay community because there was this a little tangent. There was this gay Facebook group that was on my first profile before I got blocked for making gay jokes, but there was this huge uproar because there's a question that says, is anyone open to dating HIV positive guys? The majority of us who don't want to die of AIDS say, no, that's not unreasonable. You don't want to it's like screwing a leper. You don't want to do that. But no, just people say, oh, this is discriminatory. You're not truly an ally or a part of the community if you reject people for HIV positive status. And there's the really dumb ones that say, oh, if my boyfriend accidentally gives me HIV, then I'll still love him. I wouldn't want to get it for anyone but him. You want to get paused somewhere else.
Literally getting paused. HIV positive. I don't know where they find people with this mindset, but it seems to like coalesce around gay stuff.
I mean, I saw a study that said that less than 20% of people would even consider dating a trans person. I'm surprised it's even that high.
I wouldn't.
More transphobia.
Trans is they're not what they say they are. But speaking of paneling, this next story we have out of the University of Michigan. Apparently, some minorities are feeling intimidated by the interior wood paneling throughout a building at the historic Michigan Union Building. So, Bobby, do you have this stuff up?
They said they felt intimidated by it. Keep in mind, this is literally just regular wood paneling. Like, there's nothing special about it. It's like you'd see in any building at all. But they said that the students have voiced their opinion, and apparently they said that... actually, I'm not finding it. So can you find it?
Okay. So they feel that the paneling inside this building is imposing and masculine. Apparently, quote, this is from the former president of Building a Better Michigan, an organization about students voicing their concerns about development, Anna Wibbleman. She said, minority students felt marginalized by quiet, imposing, masculine paneling found throughout the 100-year-old building. So they're going through a renovation project worth $85.2 million. And yeah, they just felt like the panels were pretty problematic. You know, we talked about, I believe it was last week, when that black student organization took over the buildings, and one of their demands was they wanted the interior to be painted the Pan-African colors. I didn't know this about, I guess, easily triggered minorities in colleges, but the aesthetics of buildings are very important. This is like the epitome of like first world minority problems.
This literally is first world minority problems.
Like in South Africa with the Saidlanders, which we talk about quite often on the show, that they're worried about being murdered by their race, and their politicians are calling for the murder of the white race. These minorities in the United States, living in such an oppressive, heteronormative, white patriarchy place, their big concern is the interior design of buildings in their college campuses. It's voluntary to go to college. They could shop around and go to a university that's not so intimidating.
Not only that, but that's just that one building.
Yeah, just
which is
one.
A historic building. It's over 100 years old.
Kris, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, this is the episode of first world minority problems, because I'm an immigrant from a third world country, to where I see villages where these houses, you can even call them houses, they're shacks made out of scrap metal and wood, they're made out of junk, and they're complaining about, wood paneling makes me feel unsafe.
It's too masculine.
Yeah.
It reminds me of white people, I guess.
Oh, I'm sorry, it reminds me of civilization.
Yeah, but just one in a plethora of absurd things that they complain about on these campuses. But let's go into what's happening at DePaul University. So recently, they passed this referendum to now allocate portion of school fees to pay for the tuition of illegal aliens. Do you have some of this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, they said that each year undocumented undergraduate students who do not have access to FAFSA, they undergo a financial gap often exceeding $17,000, which is not including room and board. And they said that they want to create a scholarship initiated by a $2 quarterly addition to the student activity fee in order to raise enough money to pay for these people. And so they're pretty much saying that, they're increasing the student activity fee by $2 so that everyone can chip in $2 to pay for the tuitions of their illegal students.
This is really crazy, where they make scholarships for people that aren't even supposed to be here. They'd rather give scholarships to foreign nationals and American citizens. And, it just kind of goes to show, like, the absurdity of where these administrations keep on raising the prices on tuition because they keep on adding stupid stuff like this. I know, like, Kris, you held back from going back into college because of, like, the additional fees for, like, going to sporting events. Would you ever even consider going to a college where they'd charge you more to pay for illegal aliens to go there?
I think the silver lining of this is that students who do apply and those who make applications, they keep it on record, the school has to know their immigration status. So what I would do is, hypothetically speaking, work for the university as a student worker or whatever student work program and send this to a WikiLeaks, but for immigrants.
Yeah, they say that, like, oh, we can't cooperate with ICE because, we don't go out and find the immigration status of people, but, like, passing this like referendum goes out and, like, finds out for them, like, who is illegal. But they didn't think about that when they passed this. Not that they're even going to do anything. Yeah,
and plus it's not going to do much. It's virtually, as Bobby said, this is a $2 for each student to chip in. Their total enrollment is around 23,000, 24,000. Woohoo! You paid for 5, maybe 6 illegal tuitions.
Yeah, I don't really have much more to say about this other than it's really dumb. Anything else, Bobby?
Well, I guess you could say that they're a sanctuary campus.
Yeah.
But, what else is a sanctuary is at the American University. They have a sanctuary cafe that is having
Is a sanctuary for non-whites.
Yes, it's a sanctuary cafe for no non-whites.
For no white people.
Correct. So they're blocking white people from going there. Is pretty much what we're trying to get to.
They're designating parts of their university now for segregation.
And they also want to have a ban on white people using their new student lounge for the rest of the spring semester.
What's going on where they need to kick out whites?
Oh yeah, this is in the aftermath of this happened a couple weeks ago. The racist banana incident. So. American University has found all over the campus people tying bananas to strings and leaving them up in poles and trees. And apparently this is a racist banana threat that needs to be addressed by the university.
Yeah, that's pretty much violence. But, one, that's probably a hoax, but two, like, no one even got hurt. Does that mean you have to ban white people from, like, stuff? Oh,
I was going to say no, but...
You agree, Bobby?
Oh, yeah, I agree. Yeah, of course it's racism. Everything's racism. But they said that the approved demand was cited by more than 100 faculty and staff who signed a, quote, solidarity statement. The problem is 2/3 of everyone who signed it were affiliated with the College of Arts and Sciences. So they literally just went to, like, the liberal arts college and said, here, sign this because it's anti-racism. And, like, you don't see the people from, like, the business school doing it or anything like that. No, it's all like liberal arts.
As Kris said before, it's just more virtue signaling. It's so that they can play more like, oh, we're fighting racism by, I guess, banning white people from parts of your campus.
Remember, it's not racist against rights, it's proper reparations.
Proper reparations.
Remember, they are correcting history.
I don't have anything more to say on that other than just another stupid thing. But
stuck on a rotten banana.
Let's go into what this professor from the University of Hawaii said. So there's a professor at the University of Hawaii that is calling for white men to quit or be demoted from their positions in the university. Bobby, do you want to go into this for us?
Yeah, the problem that I have with this this professor is she's not even like an actual professor. She's an assistant professor who is like brought on temporarily. And her name is Piper Heron, I guess. And she wrote on her blog for the American Mathematical Society, titling her piece, "Get Out of the Way." Like, I'm surprised that this place even allowed her to write it. But she said, if you are a cis white man, you almost certainly should resign from your position of power. Statistically speaking, you are probably taking up room that should go to someone else. So, not to alarm you, but I probably want you to quit your job or at least take a demotion. So she's literally saying if you're a cis white male, then you should be fired or you should quit because you need to make room for the people of color.
Yeah, you having a job.
Yeah, she says you should get off your hiring committee, your curriculum committee, and make sure that you're replaced by a woman of color or trans person. Remember that you live in a world where people don't succeed in a vacuum. Most successes happen on the backs of others who did not consent. Oh, there's the consent, Kris. And you have no idea how successful you would have been if you were still you, but with an additional marginalization, not white or not male or not cisgender or with a disability, etc. And then it kind of goes on to some more BS that I don't even feel like reading. But she says, she concludes it by saying, I can just ask that you please get out of my way.
Out of the way from doing what?
Like, the funny thing is they're asking us to get out of their way, but then whenever they go and protest in the highway, like, they block my car. Like, no, bitch, I'm going to run you over.
Like how privileged are, like, white people if, like, it's this, like, thing where you can be banned from going to, like, cafes and you have people allowed to call for you to be killed to fight racism and... You know, you can have all these things where you just condemn in these universities, but you're still considered like a privileged person in the university structure.
I can't imagine how much worse it's going to be in 2040.
Like, do they understand that white people are just the majority of people in this country? So, like, it would make sense that, like, there'd be a lot of white people in, like, university positions. Does that like enter their mind at all?
And at what point does it stop? Does it mean that every single person who's a white male in a position of power should be replaced by a woman or a person of color or trans person or whatever? Like, if you keep going and doing that till its utter conclusion, you literally have no white people in charge anywhere. Like, you know, yeah.
Kris, you have some thoughts on this?
Yeah, I shouldn't be surprised, but I am by how far the deranged elements of the left can keep going. I thought they would reach the line, but this mathematics professor, there isn't a line, it's an asymptote, and it reaches forever in infinite distance.
Yeah, you know, and she says, like, oh, you know, when you get a position, you did it off the backs of people that are marginalized, but, like, did the marginalized people have any sort of, like, influence in them getting the degrees or this, like, you know, accreditation to even get these positions? Like, no. Did they pass these tests in college because of marginalized people, not through their own efforts? Like, no. You know, they just want the end of meritocracy, to where the only reason that minorities are even getting positions is because of who they are and, like, things that they didn't even have control over. Like, at what point does that end? Like, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that reminded me of months and months ago. They were talking about changing the teachers' test in New York because there were too many minorities failing that test to become a teacher. They said, oh no, it's important for a minority to be in a teaching position, even though they can't pass a basic test.
It'd be cool as a white male that I could just be allowed to have my teaching certification even if I fail the teaching certification test. That would definitely be a pretty privileged thing to do. But
just identify as a trans woman of color.
Yeah, maybe just for the test.
Who's also Pocahontas.
Yeah. But yeah, you know, apparently we're so privileged that people are allowed to just condemn us, like, constantly in academia. You know, we have so much power that, you know, well, let's just move on. I'm just, like, combobulated by this stupidity. So at UCLA, we have an African student union making some pretty big demands. Do you want to tell us a bit about it, Bobby?
Well, first we should mention kind of what happened beforehand. So we covered this last week during Current Year College Craziness, how they took over a building on campus and were given every single thing that they wanted. They faced no repercussions for it at all.
No even discipline.
And then they said they were going to come out with a future list of other things they wanted, and this is the list that they came out with. So They're demanding a $40 million endowment. They also demand safe spaces on campus and mandatory cultural awareness training for all students, which would probably mean all students would have to take like a PC cultural awareness training class.
That they'll have to pay for.
Yeah, that they will have to pay for. And I'm guessing the $40 million endowment would probably go to like building buildings for them, I'm assuming.
Programs or something.
And they said they want safe spaces on campus in response to, quote, racist attacks that have happened. And their evidence for racist attacks was stickers that were posted up around the campus saying, if only Freddie Gray had followed the law, he'd still be alive. And also saying, stop whining and start following the law. Like, apparently that's racism nowadays. But, these people.
Yeah, it is a strange concept that following the law would result in you not being shot. But to go into the endowment that they want, it would fund a comprehensive effort to address the underrepresentation of African American students, faculty, and staff at our university. Which I don't understand what kind of representation they can even expect. Like black people only make up 13% of the population. That they wouldn't even have that much representation if it was equal.
Not only that, but here it comes. You know they're calling for it. They want all student positions on campus $15 an hour.
Oh, a living wage. Do you think they're ever going to even get any pushback from the university for this stuff?
No, the university's probably going to give them everything, or at least almost everything they want.
That's what they did last time.
What I'm really hoping for is white flight to take place at UCLA. And oh no, where did all the white students go? This is supposed to be a positive environment, you racist.
So they also want, safe spaces, which are the dumbing down of our next generation, to continue for them to be children who can't even, handle the world. And if you get triggered, you get to have some Play-Doh and go take a nap. But they also want for free 4-year guaranteed housing for black students. And they also want the establishment of a position for a black student financial aid officer that would advocate for financial aid for previously dismissed students. So I guess if you've been kicked out of the school, now if you're black, they want a new position where they're going to give you money to come back.
Only if you follow the rules, you wouldn't have been dismissed.
Hey, rules aren't allowed to apply for blacks.
But, they also want to ensure 4 years of guaranteed free housing for their black students. So no one else gets guaranteed free housing, but all the black students do.
But they're marginalized. They aren't privileged. As they continue to be able to break the law, they aren't above the law. Apparently, it's just standing contradiction on standing contradiction on standing contradiction. But, knowing UCLA, they're just going to capitulate once again, probably.
And speaking of other things that UCLA has been doing, they're now paying students to fight whiteness and fight the patriarchy.
And heteronormativity.
Right. They're serving as, quote, social justice advocates. And they want to navigate a world that operates on whiteness, patriarchy, and heteronormativity as the primary ideologies. So, guess you can get a job there.
Now, how many positions are they looking to?
8 to 10.
8 to 10. And they haven't disclosed how much compensation they're going to get.
They said the application for the inaugural students asking to join, or asking aspiring social justice advocates to explain their interest in social justice, list their preferred gender pronoun, and describe any experience they have in facilitating workshops on social justice issues. They do have options for both Z and HIR as their preferred pronouns.
How do you spell HIR?
HIR.
Oh,
I don't know what that's
English.
supposed to mean. How do you pronounce that? Her?
Isn't there some examples on that article about some what are programs or whatever that they've done or facilitated? What would be the word? Yeah. So seminars, workshops. So some examples of some workshops that they've already had at this university, which are some pretty choice programs. One was called Addressing Social Justice Myths, which promises to discuss the truths, quote unquote, behind topics such as reverse racism, allyship, intersectionality, and LGBTQ rights, with the goal of expanding the views of students and promoting empathy for marginalized communities throughout conversations. Another very choice workshop that they held was called All Aboard the Struggle Bus. Endeavors to teach students about the unfathomable struggles that minority students face on a daily basis. A third workshop that they had explored how people of color can navigate desire and love in a society where ideals of beauty are based on Eurocentric standards, asserting that our most personal decisions hold political connotations whether we like it or not. They're asked to comment on these things by Campus Reform, and they declined.
Well, obviously they declined. They always decline.
Kris, I think you had some maybe some things to say about these workshops and the way you were reacting.
There was a similar workshop a couple years back at Texas State University called the Tunnel of Oppression. I'm not going to get too much into it, but it is as bad as it sounds. It is a bunch of first world problems that us minorities face on a daily basis in America, where it just amounts to, mean words said against gays, mean words said against illegal aliens. I mean, they need to be deported, we just can't be mean to them. And it's the PC people, they're supposed to be adults. They're fantasizing adults in the college environments. These are supposed to be scholars, but they are intellectually stunting their minds by telling them that everything is a problem of a white cis straight male. It's not. And they don't even see their own ridiculousness. All aboard the struggle bus? Seriously? Like, immigrants, we come to this country is so terrible, so racist, so damn fascist. Why would we come here to be treated horribly? No, we don't. We come here because it's a good country.
Yeah. Do you wanna talk about the Tunnel of Oppression, since it was a very interesting thing that we all went to, actually. I remember I wore my Make America Great Again hat while we were going on the tour, which prompted a couple of looks at me. But I know you took most fault to it, and I didn't get to go through the entire tunnel, so.
Yeah, the entire tunnel vision of oppression. Just even the beginning, they're divided up into stations, and there's not that much interaction. And I made a lot of people uncomfortable because I had a big yellow notepad and I was taking notes on everything that was happening. To where staff members actually came up to me and said, "Oh, hey, are you part of the press?" And I said, "No, I'm just a concerned citizen." And they would just get the shocked look face and leave behind. But, for example, their timeline they had this station on Islamophobia, and it was a 1-year timeline, and it was only about things that Trump and Republicans have said.
It was Trump and Ben Carson, I remember.
Yes. And there was this other one to where there's this table, and we all had these microaggression cards. And, of course, I get the Asian microaggression card that said, "What type of Asian are you?" Then you flip it over to see what they really meant to say. So, as I said before, the front card said, "What kind of Asian are you?" On the back card, it said, "You're not a real American." And that escalated.
That's what that question means when they believe,
Yeah.
That's the microaggression.
This is how they see this world. First, they call it microaggression. If a problem is so minuscule you call it micro, then it's not that much of a problem. But they escalated this to where someone who's curious about my ethnic background is suddenly saying, "Oh, you're not a real American."
Do you remember they did that kind of performance art thing where they circled us with all the signs?
The alphabet soup of the LGBT plus.
I think they started saying epithets at us that they experienced or something.
Yeah, and they're saying things that are so mean to them. "Oh, you're only lesbian because you haven't found a real man yet," or "How do you know if you're gay? Haven't been with a woman?" Those aren't aggressive questions. These are people who haven't met a gay person have lots of questions for us. If we tell them to not ask questions, we are stifling conversation, stifling speech, and we're just letting them brew in their curiosities.
I thought it was pretty funny when they circled us and said fag.
Like I use that word all the time, and so does my new boyfriend. We don't care. It's just words. They're not gonna jump out and hurt you. But apparently, to these people, it's oppression.
I was gonna say, when you were taking notes, like you were aggressively taking notes, like you almost made them feel uncomfortable.
Oh yeah, I was at that point as it went on. I just loudly took notes, stabbed the paper with pen. There was actually a couple of those interactive scenes to where the actors and actresses stopped mid scene and they're just staring at my notepad, like wondering what is he writing, what's going on.
And when we asked questions about like the stuff, like the people were just really low information and uninformed. They couldn't even like answer any of our qualms or like pushback.
They even let me correct their Islamophobia timeline because they even got that part wrong.
I think they had like spelling mistakes on it too.
Yeah,
They did, and grammar mistakes too.
Yeah, spelling, grammar, and the tour guide, she just handed me a Sharpie and said, just fix whatever you can.
Oh, no, speaking of the tour guide, I remember our friend Ariel, she was recording it on her phone, just like an audio recording, and she was wearing a shirt that kind of had like a pocket protector, and she stuck her phone there. So every single time the tour guide would stop to talk to us, she would just like stand right next to her, and everyone's like staring at Ariel because she was smiling and laughing the entire time.
I didn't know that recording exists. I need to ask to listen to that.
Yeah.
But the home run of it is at the end. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, at the beginning he told us if we were triggered at any time that they had staff members on hand who can address our needs, concerns, feelings, and all that jazz. So at the end, we were brought to the debriefing room to where the trigger staff was. And at first, I just wanted to walk away saying, like, there's nothing of value I can say to these people because they're going to believe the same thing no matter what the truth I hurl at them. But Ariel, she prodded me like, hey, Kris has something to say. So I ranted to them how we were the privileged ones in the first world country to even talk about this make-believe oppression. I told them that there's real oppression. Like, for example, there's spiral kidnappings in Kazakhstan. There is human trafficking in the Philippines. And speaking of the Philippines, back in my birth country, in my village, the mayor of my village at Tabacan, he lost both his sons to politics because politics is a blood sport in the Philippines. In the oppression in America, their so-called oppression, is the fact that people exercise a free speech. Granted, it's free speech that isn't polite, but it still remains to be free. In the Philippines, the crimes that my former mayor's sons committed, it was to speak out, it was to be reformist. They dared to make their country great again. Or, I mean, great for once. Let's not kid ourselves. But that is the disconnect between the so-called oppression and the liberal avatar view in America and the oppression in the third world beyond.
Yeah, and this was put on by the student housing. I know there was RAs that were involved because at the time I worked in student housing and I saw posters put up in the dorms about this stuff, and like I thought it was kind of just like a joke. You know, I took a photo and sent it to
It was
y'all.
a joke.
Yeah, but like there were people taking it very seriously in my working place. They were like, oh, so-and-so, are you going to go to the Tunnel of Oppression? They're like, yeah, I want to go out. And I was just like, what on earth? You guys are really dumb. Why are you in college?
Yeah, I'm just glad by the end of it, our tour group that we travel with all pretty much agreed to my views by the end of the tour. But
yeah, I just kind of wanted to, bring up that in instance because it just kind of shows people a light of what these workshops are like. And, I'm kind of glad now that they have 8 to 10 students that will be paid to do that. Maybe they'll be a little more high info, but they'll probably be even more indoctrinated. So.
As long as they get paid $15 an hour, then that's fine.
I mean, they said they want to, expand people's viewpoints, but it really just means that they want to give people their viewpoints, and they'll call them racist or something if they challenge them. But, you being like a super oppressed double minority, they listen to you. I couldn't say anything if I wanted.
You're a white male.
You're a white male. You are what you are. But, yeah, with that, I just want to go into the last story for current year college craziness, which is happening at the University of Columbia. They're looking to have segregated graduation ceremonies for people of, like, various different backgrounds. Do you have the stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah, they said in addition to special commencement proceedings for students who identify as Black, Latino, queer, Native American, and Asian, there will also be a ceremony for students who are the first in their families to earn a degree. So they're literally having different graduation ceremonies for different ethnicities and, like, colors.
Where's the white one?
That's the question. And so you don't get to graduate.
No, you don't get your own special one.
No, you just gotta...
What if I feel marginalized when I'm around black people?
That's racist, then.
Oh, okay. But yeah, they're allowing segregation for the ceremonies. Harvard University actually did this last week. I know, for black students. And, Columbia is another Ivy League school where, they're just getting on the segregation train. Toot, toot. So,
All aboard the segregation train, struggle bus, what's next?
the struggle bus is a good one.
I mean, I'm actually in favor of one of those, though. Holding the additional ceremony for students who are the first in their families to go to college, that one I'm okay with.
That one's kind of cool, but like the Native American one, like how many students are they even going to have for that one?
Like 2?
Maybe like 5.
And they all look white like Elizabeth Warren.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth Warren could give the commencement speech.
Knowing them, they probably will have her do it.
Yeah, it's just kind of, I don't know what to say other than yeah, I guess they're advocating for segregation again.
I will say that they have to fill out a nomination form, which anyone is allowed to submit, and it seeks to gauge how dedicated a nominee is to social justice, asking them details about their social justice endeavors as an undergraduate, as well as how they will, quote, continue the growth of understanding of multiculturalism, addressing diversity issues, and working towards social justice in person and or professional realms after graduation. So they literally want these people to describe what they're going to do with social justice after they graduate in order to determine whether or not they can partake in this special ceremony.
What? I mean, isn't it good enough that you get to graduate? Like that's a big accomplishment. Why? I don't understand why it's so important for you to have a separate graduation.
Our college has separate graduations based on what college you're graduating from. The liberal arts college will have it one day. The College of Business have it another day. College of Art will have it another day. Back in my dad's day, they had one giant graduation ceremony, and the dean would have everyone, or the president of the university would say, College of Liberal Arts, stand up. You're all graduating. Congratulations. Sit down. College of Business, stand up. You're all graduated. Sit down. And they wouldn't have this whole and every single person individually walk across the stage. You wonder why this stuff takes 3 hours long.
Yeah. I don't get why they're seeking to divide their students on the basis of race. I thought we're supposed to be united in our school, Well, like at Texas State, we're united in being Bobcats, It doesn't matter if you're white, black, Hispanic, or whatever. It doesn't matter if you're straight or queer. I mean, we're all in this together, but apparently at these upper echelons of schools, they don't see their students that way.
But even speaking out against it, they'll call you racist for that.
Yeah.
When what they're doing, obviously is racism.
It's just, I don't get this stuff. But, they know better than me. They're in Ivy League school, so. Now, any other things before we get into the international news?
I think we should move on to our next topic.
Yeah. Just give people a forewarning. It's raining pretty bad now, so if you hear any rain or thunderstorms in the background, you know what that is. But yeah, let's get into this international news. I know this is one of the big things we want to talk about. But Trump's currently on an international tour of the world.
That's right. He's first stopping in Saudi Arabia, and his plans are also going to go to Jerusalem as well as the Vatican. So he's hitting all 3 major religious countries in the world.
Yeah, but as of this recording, he's in Saudi Arabia. So did y'all see his opening ceremony for him landing? It was extravagant.
Yeah, they said it's a ceremony fit for a king, and I was really impressed by the fact that the king of Saudi Arabia, he actually shook Melania Trump's hand.
Yeah,
that's a very symbolic thing that you haven't seen in prior administrations.
And no head covering.
Right.
No,
and apparently she was
didn't.
showing her legs as well.
Yeah, which is haram. But yeah, it was way huger than the one Obama did. It was made for a king, King Donald, I guess.
Yeah, that's why we have Donald of Arabia.
Yeah, is the title this week. But let's go into some of the things they talked about. So Trump revealed a plan to create a sort of Arab NATO. Do you want to tell us some about that, Bobby?
Yeah, what he wants to do is he wants the Arab countries to fight terrorism and push back against Iran. And also, one of the purposes was pretty much, if you remember back during the campaign, Trump said he wanted to build like safe zones for refugees and whatnot.
Yeah.
And this is part of it. He wants the Arab countries to come together and solve their own problems, because the U.S. has been doing it for way too long. We've spent way too much money, way too many lives, and it's just not our issue to deal with. And he says, look, I want to go over there and get these people to the point where they can solve the problems of themselves for them.
Yeah, which it seems like they're really willing to work with Donald Trump on these things.
Very much so, and that's one of the things that was important is they signed a $110 billion arms deal. Now, I know a lot of people complain about the fact that, do we really want to be selling weapons to Saudi Arabia, which is one of the biggest countries in the world that like funds terrorism and whatnot? But if it takes the Saudis to kind of get respect back to the U.S., I'm for it. As well as anytime any other country is going to give you $110 billion up front, but it's worth over $350 billion over 10 years. Like, that's a good thing in my view.
Now, you wanted to bring up a thing as far as them funding the wall.
Yes. Now, one of the things that was pointed out through something I saw on the internet was that, we were talking about how much the wall is going to cost. $20 billion, even upwards of $40 billion if it was twice as expensive as we thought. One of the things that they have as part of that deal is Saudi Arabia is promising to invest $40 billion into the U.S. Now, it wasn't specifically said what they were investing in.
Yeah.
But if you look at Saudi Arabia's border with Iraq, they have like 4 different fences with guard towers, and they have like electronic surveillance. They have a very secure border there. And one of the things that people are thinking about is that whatever companies or whatever that built there, if you want to use the word wall, I'll just say border security. If you can use some of that technology and some of that infrastructure ideas to influence our wall, that $40 billion easily pays for 2 walls.
Yeah.
Or one very, very expensive wall.
Build a wall and make Saudi Arabia pay for it.
So, and people were pointing out some of Trump's tweets from years ago saying, with all the stuff that we give to Saudi Arabia, they should be giving us free oil for the next 10 years. And now you have him as president, and one of the first major deals he strikes is a huge deal where they're giving us a ton of money for arms sales and whatnot.
They've even said that they're looking to invest $100 million into Ivanka Trump's paid maternity leave program, which I know a lot of people are against, but I'm kind of for. Now, I know, Kris, you're kind of mixed on this arms deal that we did with Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, as Bob mentioned before, Saudi Arabia, as our friends at WikiLeaks have confirmed, is a major supporter, financial contributor to terrorism around the globe. However, if Saudi Arabia is going to buy arms anyway, that money should go to our. It better find its way to our pocket than someone else's. So, I mean, it's still blood money, but blood money is still money.
Yeah, I understand Saudi Arabia is not the best country in the world, and we do have like a lot of crappy allies. I hate Turkey more than Saudi Arabia, but I'm generally in support of this. I mean, it's money coming into the United States, and they seem really determined to strengthen their relationships with us. Now, Trump gave a speech earlier today. I actually listened to most of it, and he said that we're looking to, in cooperation with Saudi Arabia, create a program that's going to look into the different ways which terrorist organizations such as ISIS are actually getting their funding, so we can actually target where it's coming from. Now, if the funding is coming from Saudi Arabia, which, we do have instances where we can see that's happening, I don't know how far that's going to go. But
well, one of the things I'd like to point out is apparently from what I've read, he got Saudi Arabia to declare Hezbollah a terrorist organization.
Really?
And I found this on Twitter. I wasn't able to actually put in an article. But they're creating this massive 40-person team to combat Islamic terrorism focused directly in Saudi Arabia. So they're going to use their own resources, and it said 30 or so different languages are represented there. And it's pretty much like a massive Middle Eastern based anti-terror squad of people to collect evidence and figure that stuff out.
He even said in the speech, in front of all these Arab leaders, that they need to fight Islamic extremism, and that Islamic terrorism affects Arabs more than it does the United States.
Which we've read The Art of the Deal. Trump's all about getting leverage. He wants the person he's making a deal with to believe that it is in a better position for them to make a deal with him. That's what he wants them to believe they're in a position of. And if you think about it this way, Trump framed it as, look, radical Islamic terror really hurts you people as well as us. You're the ones getting hurt by this. It's the Muslim communities in that region that get hurt by ISIS. So I want you guys to be, he's kind of thinking this. He's like, it's in your better interest to do this, to fight radical Islamic terror yourselves. So that's what it looks like they're doing.
He also brought up in that speech that, we need to aim to protect Christians, which are under, persecution and slaughter. It's persecution of Christians in the Middle East is at like an all-time high.
It is.
So it's good that he's bringing these issues up, and it was a very good speech. And I do feel optimistic about how we are negotiating with our allies in the region. I'm optimistic about it. I think that we're on a good track with what we're trying to do out there.
Absolutely. And some of the other things about when Trump met there is, there's the very famous picture of President Obama bowing before the King of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And people were saying Trump didn't bow. In fact, the only time he even lowered himself was when the King of Saudi Arabia, who's pretty short, and Trump's a really tall guy, he's like 6'3", he was giving him the highest civilian honor that Saudi Arabia can give out. He was giving him a medal, so Trump kind of leaned down for him to put it over his neck and then immediately stood back up.
Yeah, people have been trying to fake news that all day.
Yeah, they're like, see, Trump bowed too. It's like, no, he did not. And the fact that, I just keep going back to the fact that the King of Saudi Arabia shook Melania Trump's hand.
Yeah, that's something else. She didn't have to wear a head covering. She had her legs exposed, but they didn't do anything about it.
That's the respect that they're showing now that you have Trump in office.
It seems like they really want to dial back their extremism in the face of Donald Trump.
I mean, like I said, he called that out during his speech.
Now, I forget who said this, but I saw that there was a tweet from someone who was on the plane with Donald Trump, and before they got off the plane, he said, if I see any of you people bowing, you're going to be on the first flight back to the United States. So, he set the standard, no, we're not beneath the Saudis, even though, we're going to have a good time out there with them. Did you see the sword dance that they did?
That was awesome.
It was funny. They gave even Donald Trump this, giant saber to do their sword dance with them, which, he wasn't so enthusiastic about it, but I think it was just surreal. I was thinking, a year back, it seemed like this abstract, I really hope Donald Trump wins the election. Now he's my president. He's doing sword dances in Saudi Arabia.
It's just like the sword that was presented to him at the Naval Academy.
Yeah.
I think we mentioned this
last week.
But there's a really good quote that Trump made, and I just want to read it here. He says, "We must seek partners, not perfection, and to make allies of all who share our goals. Above all, America seeks peace, not war."
Yeah. Generally for me, good stuff out of the Middle East. I think so far his tour is going well. This tour is something like over 15,000 miles he's traveling in the course of 3 days. Also, I know after he goes to the Vatican, he's going to the Brussels for the G20 summit.
Right.
So, he's pretty busy. This is his first big trip outside of the United States, so.
It's his first trip anywhere outside the United States.
Yeah. I sure hope he goes to Moscow pretty soon. That's what we really need more than anything else.
Well, let's get one trip done first, all right?
I don't know. We probably need to wait for this special investigation before we even go to Russia. Otherwise, they'll accuse us of stuff.
But, the media has pushed the bar so low on Trump to the point where if he does anything good, it's going to look like a fantastic victory. And it looks like that's what's already happening. So,
yeah,
that's great.
Let's we don't got too much other international news to go into, but let's go into the oil production in Venezuela. Since we always talk about energy in this program, since it's so important, people kind of brush over it. But it looks like the oil production in Venezuela is on the verge of collapse, which, if you know, Venezuela is already, collapsing around itself, and the only thing they even create is oil. They don't create any other goods that they share with the world, and everything else they import. So it looks like it's going to get way worse out there very soon. Do you have some stuff up on this, Bobby?
Yeah, I actually had to search for the article, but I found it. So, yeah, I think you actually said it pretty much. But they said, the inflation rate right now, according to the IMF in Venezuela, is 720% this year.
720%.
inflation rate. Keep in mind the U.S. tries to keep ourselves about a 2 to 3% inflation rate per year.
That means, if something costs like $1, say for bread, the price went up 720%.
Right.
So they're in hyperinflation free fall, like it's Zimbabwe or Weimar Germany. And there's open fighting between the socialist state killing people out there.
Yeah, they said they've just reached their 50th day of massive protests.
50 days.
50th day. But anyways, they said that of Venezuela's 4 major oil refineries, 3 of them are operating significantly below capacity because of the inability to even find spare parts for maintenance.
Wow. And you remember recently, I think it was maybe 3 weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the Venezuelan government took over an ExxonMobil plant.
Yeah, that's why I said 3 of the 4.
Yeah, which ExxonMobil said we're not working in Venezuela anymore. We're not doing that. So.
Yeah, they said some of the ships that are supposed to carry oil are just sitting there in the dock. They can't leave because they haven't paid their bills yet, or the Venezuelan government has not paid the bills to the ships, so they can't leave without payment.
Yeah.
Venezuela is an extremely oil-rich country, and we can't even get to it because their socialist government just is on the brink of collapse.
And they're just making the entire situation worse for themselves. But the government's not going to step down. I don't know where this is all going in Venezuela, but it's really sad. I don't want this stuff happening. I know actually recently Donald Trump has passed a thing where we're willing to take in refugees from Venezuela, which I think is the right thing to do. So.
I'd rather have them from Venezuela than from the Middle East, personally.
Yeah, at least we could vet them better. But the next thing I want to get into while we're on the subject of energy is Japan and China successfully extracted combustible ice from the seafloor, which is going to potentially be an energy breakthrough. It's called methane hydrate that can be lit on fire in its frozen state, and would represent a major new fossil fuel reserve if it could be commercially developed. Do you have some other stuff on this, Bobby?
I just got to say, if they're able to do that, then, that could potentially double or triple production per year of fossil fuels.
Yeah, and as we've been seeing across the world, oil production is massively up, spearheaded by us. But, if the Chinese and the Japanese, are able to develop this new energy source, we could continue to see the prices on oil drop, which, we've already been seeing it do a lot. So it's been pretty interesting.
Yeah, they said that the United States and India both have research programs right now trying to figure out ways to capture it as fuel, rather than just kind of discovering what it is.
Yeah, and this can help overall quell the tensions in the South China Sea between Tokyo and Beijing, to where one of the focal points of the South China Sea is the oil reserves in the ocean. However, to get to to have an alternate source, Bobby, you want to go in this?
No, keep going.
Yeah, to have an alternate source, it would help alleviate tensions. However, OPEC, we've seen this time and time again, when there are possibilities of alternate sources, they ramp up their oil production to drive the incentive to discover new sources down. So it'll be cheaper fuel overall.
Yeah, not only that, but they said the estimated worldwide reserves of this new kind of fossil fuel is 280 trillion cubic meters, which at current rates of natural gas use, if you were to switch that out, means that you could meet the global gas demands for another 80 to 800 years.
Which, if you've been looking at the trends of gas consumption and demand, has actually been going up. We've almost reached a point where demand is higher than global supply. So this really came at the right time. But it looks like, we have to continue to develop this. They just been able to extract this from the seafloor. We're not going to be seeing small-scale output till probably around 2020, and I don't think this could be a full-time commercial industry, it says, until 2030. So this is going to have to be a continued thing to look about.
Yeah, one of the biggest problems right now is if the cost to extract it compared to the cost that they'd sell it for, it's not economically feasible to be able to break in a profit by selling it.
Yeah, but Let's get into the last couple of stories we have about Europe. I want to get into some of the Germany stuff first, and then the Swedish stuff, because I want to close out with the big news that we have from Sweden.
All right.
So, out of Germany, there's the huge migrant crisis. Over the last couple of years, they've taken in billions of migrants. And one of the big things is the housing market has really taken a big hit. You can actually see this in pretty much all countries that have taken in migrants. Sweden has a huge problem with housing at the moment. The United Kingdom as well, I know. But Germany is now looking to confiscate buildings now to put migrants in. So the story that I'm talking about is happening out of Hamburg. And the German council confiscated 6 apartments to help ease migrant housing shortage. And the owners will have to pay 5-figure renovation bills. This is the level of insanity that we're seeing out of Germany. People don't realize how crazy it's getting out there. It's getting so crazy in all these countries in the European Union. But now the German officials are taking houses from their own citizens, and they're making the citizens pay for renovations for these migrants, which, contribute ton to crime, take up so much welfare use, and, it's not good, so.
Yeah, they said that the city was receiving up to 400 migrants per day.
400?
Not the country, the city.
Where do you keep all these people?
They said the city was already struggling to provide housing for the 1.7 million people who live there. And that's before the massive flux of refugees started showing up.
And, we're entering summer, and that means that they're going to start crossing the Mediterranean. We're going to start seeing the next big wave of migrants coming into Europe. I know today alone there was something like 20,000 African migrants that landed in Sicily. So they're really coming in mass. I know in Italy there's starting to be big pushback amongst the citizenry. But especially in Germany, most people are still in favor of open borders. So, in the past, in 2015, we saw 1.2 million migrants go into Germany. Last year, we saw 1.5 million migrants go into Germany. Predictions for this year is at least 1.2 million. So, they might be confiscating a lot more housing over the course of this summer. It's really insane. Which, if you follow the crisis, they always call them refugees. The majority don't come from the Syrian conflict. They come from places like Eritrea, Afghanistan, Pakistan, the Ivory Coast, Ghana, Somalia. It's something else, A good video that I always like pointing people to is the video on YouTube with Open Gates. Really gives you a scope of how crazy it's getting. Something else. Kris, do you have any comments on the German officials taking housing from their citizens to give to migrants?
Well, you can expect that to be hush-hush in German media.
Definitely not something that people in the United States know anything about. So, the other issue in Germany that I wanted to get into is Germany now has too many terrorist suspects to even keep track of. Do you have this stuff up, Bobby?
Yeah. It's actually loading right now. But, they said one of the people that's Richard Barrett, who apparently is part of one of their counterterrorism things, he said that he was talking to the BBC, and he said that there are around 550, quote, really extreme potential terrorists in the books. And he said, in addition to that, if you include all the local regions in Germany, they have about 7,000 live cases of possible terrorist suspects living in their country.
17,000?
7,000.
7,000. Well, that's still bad. And you look what happened last year in Germany. There was so many attacks all across Europe. It seemed at one point we were seeing big attacks every single day. You can go back to Nice. You can go back to Cologne. You can go back to what happened in Berlin. You could go back to the beheading of the priest in Normandy. It's getting really bad, and now the German officials have a situation on their hand where they can't even keep track of all these terrorists, and they don't vet anyone that comes into their nation. Like I said, They're predicted to have 1.2 million more migrants enter their country, and they have no idea who's coming in. And ISIS has already said, we put terrorists amongst the people coming in. There's terrorist cells spread all across Germany, all across France, all across all the nations in Europe, except like Poland and Hungary, because they don't do this stuff. They just close their border. But yeah, it's getting really bad out there, and as always, they don't let people know just how bad the terrorism is getting out there. Like Emmanuel Macron, the new French president, said, it's just something they're gonna have to learn to live with. That's just what you have to accept of life living in a big city. Terrorism. It's disgusting. But yeah, there's 2 stories left that I wanted to get into coming out of Sweden. The first one I want to get into is a 70-year-old woman was prosecuted for complaining about migrants defecating in the streets. Now, this woman is looking to face up to 4 years in prison for complaining about migrants defecating in the streets. You can look across a lot of the nations in Europe, in the European Union. It's illegal to criticize anything about immigration, anything about these migrants. Did I mention on the show last week the German hockey goalie that lost his position in the national team? He just liked a meme on Instagram, which kind of, it had like a picture of Hitler and a picture of Hillary, and it was just kind of overall negative of both, and saying like, oh, they weren't tried, either of them. And so it was like implicitly pro-Trump. Just for liking that on Instagram, he was kicked off of the national German hockey team.
Jesus.
That just gives you a little insight on how bad like internet censorship and monitoring is out there. Even being a part of like right-wing groups on Facebook and stuff is grounds to go to jail. But yeah, this is an instance on Facebook where they think that a 70-year-old woman complaining about migrants taking shits in the street is worth sending them in jail for. Yeah, she was, the penalty that she's receiving is for incitement of racial hatred. And, yeah, she's looking to get at least 2 years and potentially 4 years for these comments. Insanity, like, personified.
Like, that wouldn't even be close to what people would consider a 2-year prison sentence here in the States.
No.
Like,
in the United States, you can criticize stuff like that.
That's why I'm so glad we have free speech here.
Because it doesn't exist in most of the world. That's what people don't realize. And, things like Facebook and Twitter, they cooperate with these governments saying, you need to help us censor these people. You need to help us find these people. Last week, the BBC came out and said, if you have, negative comments on their articles, we are going to turn you into your job so you can get fired. The threat of even expressing your viewpoints on the internet are getting so dangerous now. And, in the United States, we're very lucky that we can speak our mind, but we have to be very vigilant. With Donald Trump, freedom of speech is pretty well protected, but who's to say that doesn't go away after Donald Trump if we get, say, a Democrat into power? But I don't want to close with sad news. I want to close with some good things that happened. So the last thing that we have to go into is the Swedish government has dropped the rape investigation of Julian Assange. Which, if you don't know who Julian Assange is, he's the head of WikiLeaks who's been held up into the Ecuadorian embassy for, I believe, 5 years now?
5 or 6 years.
5 or 6 years.
7 years.
7 years. So they've been calling for the extradition of Julian Assange to Sweden for quite a while now, under rape allegations, which he's denied the whole time. And, if he got extradited out to Sweden, he would for sure be put in jail because of how he's just leaking these things out to the government. It's the same, risk that Edward Snowden risks for being a whistleblower. And, we can really, really thank Julian Assange for what he's did in exposing a lot of corruption and really illegal things coming out of government. So it's good that we don't have to worry about him going to jail now.
Well, they said the problem is, the British government's been trying to get him for years as well.
Yeah.
Like, there was things that they said where they were like, they cut off the power to the building and all that stuff. And
yeah, I remember that happened during the summer. That was very scary.
He actually still has not yet left the embassy because the British government has said that they will still arrest him if he leaves.
I couldn't imagine spending 7 years dedicated to this cause so much that you stay in the Ecuadorian embassy, but it's not like he has a choice either.
Yeah. Chris, you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, as much as I like Trump, I don't believe he's the magic politician. We shouldn't believe in any magic politicians.
Yeah.
So as much as we would like to see reform when it comes to our domestic surveillance, Trump cannot fight entire battles on his own. Like, he was fighting on a handicap. It took reason until he got his full cabinet. So I do not expect him to quell the ones who are out for Julian Assange's and Edward Snowden's scalp in the
Trump
agencies.
Administration.
Yes.
Because he's still widely hated all across the government. There's a lot of politicians in our country that have openly called for Julian Assange to be extradited to us. I forget who it was, but it was like a major Democratic official out of the DNC who, after the WikiLeaks release, the first day of the DNC convention, he called on television for the illegal killing of Julian Assange.
I mean, even Hillary Clinton said, "Can't we just drone this guy?"
Yeah. The other guy I was talking about, he called for the illegal droning. Not even saying that, like, oh, we should go through any sort of legal process to, like, get rid of him. Not that he should be murdered for exposing the truths of the world, which is supposed to be hidden away from us. Which, if you expose these truths, you're hacking an election, apparently. But very, very, very good news to get out as far as the effort towards finding truth in the world. With that, I don't think there's much other to get into. Any other things y'all want to say before we close out the show?
I just want to say that I hope Trump stays safe with his the rest of his trip to Jerusalem and then the Vatican and then it was Brussels, right?
Brussels afterwards. Yeah. Any other things you want to say, Chris, before we close?
Yeah, even though it's a couple months from now, I'm really looking forward to this impeach Trump march in Austin.
Oh, yeah. So, in Austin, I believe it's July 1st or 2nd? Second. They're having an impeach Trump march, which we'll be going out to, for sure. I believe the day before they're having the pro-Trump march. So, I guess we're going to have 2 days of fun. That's going to make for a good podcast. We'll do a midweek for sure just about those experiences.
We'll also probably have a lot of video of it as well. So.
Yeah. Look to see what we upload. If we get some video, and I know, Bobby, you're looking to record for these events, we'll put it up on the YouTube.
I'll try to see if I can get doxxed again.
Doxed again?
Just carry around a sign with your contact information on it.
Yeah.
That way they don't have to dox you.
So, with that said, I want to close out the show for a week, but I just want to get into some housekeeping things for the show. So, like I said earlier, we're looking to have Simon Roach, the Sadelanders, on the midweek show this week. Definitely our biggest guest we've ever gotten for the show. We got to get that confirmed down in the next couple of days, but it looks very likely because, as I said before, he's a good friend of ours. So that'll be very interesting. He's been on some major news outlets, and it's also a very important cause. I know we're looking to get on Sam Brennan as well for a midweek show, who recently kind of made big, at least state news, because a court judge tried to get him removed from the court for testifying on this kind of instance of voter fraud in Hays County, which he'll also go into some other causes which he's worked in before, and he's just a very interesting guy. He's been a good friend of mine for 3 years now, actually. There's also a lot of other midweek mini podcast topics I want to get into, since I've found that people really like it when we go over topics and just inform about them, like we did with the healthcare or the Sadelanders. So, I don't know, I'm thinking maybe we could push Sam Brennan back, but I mean, that's something me and Bobby have to talk about. But I just want to say, if you're listening to us on the YouTube and you enjoyed the show, please give us a like or a comment. It helps people see us better. We could always use more reviews on iTunes. I haven't checked how many we have at the moment, but last time I checked, we only had one. So, yeah, maybe 2 midweek mini podcasts this week. I don't know how many you're willing to do this week, Bobby. I don't know. It's not too hard to do. But with that said, I hope you enjoyed the show, and have a good one.
Bye, everyone.
До свидания.